What is going on, guys? It is a late Sunday night, early Monday morning. Happy Memorial Day for those of you celebrating. Hopefully many of you have the day off from work. See, we don't take days off around here. We're always working 7 days a week. But we are here live after one of traditionally the bigger AEW pay-per-views of the year. First Double or Nothing, of course, took place back in 2019. I had the great privilege of being at that show. That was a very memorable Double or Nothing. And over the years, AEW has had some really good, some great Double or Nothing pay-per-views. AEW in general is known, when it comes to the in-ring, known for having great pay-per-views. And it doesn't happen all the time, but by and large, their events tend to be very good. You could talk about, certain shows maybe don't, deliver quite as much as other ones or the length of them. Generally speaking, though, they're excellent shows. I can sit here and tell you that we are almost halfway now through the year. This was easily the best pay-per-view, PLE, call them what you want, of the entire year so far. This was the show of the year so far in 2026. This may well have been the greatest Double or Nothing that AEW has ever produced. And it will go down as one of the better pay-per-views, the great pay-per-views of all time in AEW. That is the home run that they hit tonight at Louis Armstrong Stadium. They had over 14,000 people sold out in that building. Couldn't run Arthur Ashe because it's under renovation right now. It does make me wonder, though, if they had access to Arthur Ashe for this show, could they have gotten closer to 20,000 in that building? I don't know if they would have hit 20K. Do I think they would have had a shot at it? Absolutely. And New York did not let me down tonight, because that crowd tonight was fucking phenomenal. Fantastic. I mean, they were hot from start to finish. I mean, they cooled off during some of the matches in the middle. But again, they peaked at the beginning, and then they kind of brought it down a little bit. And then when they had to, they were there for the later matches in the show, and they just added so much to it. Just the overall energy level of the show was just fucking fantastic. And hopefully that will not be the last show that we see them running in that venue. Because it just was tremendous stuff tonight. One thing that was also very noticeable about this show, very little blood. The blood that we got was hard way. And it was very, very sparing throughout the show. And it was very noticeable because typically on an AEW pay-per-view, you get a lot of blood and you get a lot of gore. And we really didn't have any of that tonight. And I'm assuming that had to do, New York, the commission here in New York, maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know, but I think it was for the betterment of the show. I think it made the show even better because I am so desensitized to it on these shows because we just see it all the time. We see it in the opening match, we see it in the middle matches, we see it in the main events, we see it on TV every week. That when I saw blood on the back of Darby Allin's head in the main event tonight, when he came off the Tron, off the scaffolding, and hit a coffin drop to MJF through a table and fucking bonked his head on the way down and busted himself open. It actually enhanced the match for me because I realized at that moment, I said, holy shit, we haven't gotten hardly any blood on this show. Little incidental blood here and there. So that was something I definitely noticed, especially when it came time for the main event. But again, in the 7-year history of this company, this was, to me, the best Double or Nothing, one of the best pay-per-views they've ever done. And they deserve all the kudos for it. On paper, it looked like a strong show coming in. There were matches on there that I looked at and I said, oh man, like Okada and Takeshita. I'm really looking forward to that match. Swerve and Bandido in the Owen Hart tournament. That's going to be a fucking great match. I can't wait to see that. Anarchy in the arena last year, I had a ton of fun with. So if Stadium Stampede is anything like that, man, that's going to be a lot of fun. And when the show was over, really top to bottom with very few exceptions, every single match delivered and then some. I really don't have a whole lot negative to say about that. They put a lot of work in tonight, I think, up and down the card, all the men and women on the card. So that's number one. But of course, it was all built around the main event. They sold a lot of tickets on the idea that MJF might actually get his head shaved bald tonight. And realistically, I didn't really think it was going to happen. But it was also more because I just couldn't. The thought of MJF going in there after having already lost to Darby Allin in like 2 minutes and then losing to Kevin Knight, So he didn't have a lot of momentum here coming into this match. And then going in there and losing to Darby again. Forget even getting his head shaved. To go in there tonight and lose again to someone who you had to know he was on borrowed time, right? This is the story that they've been telling on television now for weeks. Darby is defending his championship weekly, sometimes multiple times a week. He's taking all of these ridiculous bumps and all of these crazy risks. He's burning the candle at both ends. You mean to tell me that MJF is going to lose to this guy again and he can't find a way to beat Darby Allin? It just wouldn't have made any sense. So I was pretty confident that he was going to walk out with that championship, but you can never be sure, right? I even said on the sound off earlier today, I wonder, because they're really pushing this hair stipulation. And I'm wondering if they could actually have their cake and eat it too, where he wins the belt back, but then they find a way to actually get his head shaved anyway. Right, so the fans get to see that too, and they get like the happy ending there at the end. But I'm glad they didn't do that, right? MJF won, he doesn't get his head shaved. We did, however, have a little bit of a surprise, but not really, I guess, at the end of the show. I wasn't expecting to see it tonight, but if you have been watching Dynamite, and if you've been watching the streams as I talk about Dynamite every week, the Kevin Knight stuff, Kevin Knight has just, the other day when he cut that promo in the ring where he came out and completely overshadowed Darby and Speedball on Wednesday, I even made the comment then. I said, man, it came off as very heelish to me. Because some people thought maybe Speedball was going to be going heel soon. I said, of the two, it really should be Kevin Knight. I think it would be Kevin Knight. I can't picture Speedball as a heel. If anybody is going to go heel, I think it's going to be Kevin Knight. What I was not expecting was for them to shoot the angle tonight. If anything, I thought maybe they would have saved it for TV. They did it tonight, where Darby Allin, after losing the AEW World Championship to MJF, now a 3-time AEW World Champion by the age of 30, Kevin Knight comes out, chases MJF away. Darby Allin is strapped to a freaking stretcher. He can't move. He can't do nothing. And Kevin Knight comes off the top, down to the floor with a UFO splash. And the announcers were, why? Kevin Knight, why? Why would you do this to Darby Allin? Because he let all of them down. Kevin Knight cut this promo on Wednesday, this really like over-the-top big pep speech, this big pep talk for Darby Allin, where we believe in you and everything is riding on you. Everybody, you got to go in there and represent the company. You got to beat this guy. And he failed. And so Kevin Knight decided to do what he did tonight. Could be as simple as that. Although I think we just got a glimpse into what Darby's match may be for Wembley Stadium this year. I suspect we're not going to be seeing Darby for a little bit before he makes the big comeback. Darby Allin, let me tell you something. Darby Allin always does stupid shit. Darby Allin took some bumps in this match tonight. He took a bump in this match in the first 30 seconds that made me shout. I actually gasped when I saw this bump. And it was on a suicide dive. The only person in wrestling who takes that literally. Darby Allin. And that was just a little taste of what this guy went on to do in this match. That's who Darby is. But he's been having title defense after title defense, and it all ran out for him tonight. And I just don't understand, why you would want to not give him some time off. So I suspect that we will not see him for a little bit. Let him rest up, let him heal up, and then we'll get him back and we'll get the match with Kevin Knight. MJF winning the championship, though, was hardly a surprise here on this show. Stadium Stampede. Now, we knew coming into this that Stadium Stampede was going to be a clusterfuck. I mean, what else could it be? You got 14 guys out there, and they're all going to be doing all kinds of wacky shit all over the building, right? So you kind of knew what to expect. Maybe the biggest surprise to me is that they didn't adopt the typical, I guess, blueprint of the Anarchy in the Arena matches, where we have the music playing in the background. Otherwise, it was basically Anarchy in the Arena, just without the music. But it was just mass chaos for 30 minutes. If I have one real critique, it would be that it went 30 minutes. It did not need to go 30 minutes. We definitely got to a point in the Stampede match where I was like, you know what? You could have achieved the same thing and shaved off 8 to 10 minutes. It did go a little long. But I had fun with it, because I knew what to expect coming in. Again, I mentioned the match last year. I had a lot of fun with that Anarchy in the Arena match last year. They always try to come up with some funny, stupid shit to do. You kind of know what to expect going into it. There's going to be a lot of no selling. because it's just constantly going from one spot to another. It's a spot fest. That's what it is. It is a spot fest. Everybody has their spots that they do. And they try to make it entertaining. They try to make it comical. They try to make it amusing. And again, maybe they were handicapped in that they couldn't go over the top with the violence. Because for all this, think about it, all the stuff that they were doing in that match, you didn't have the blood. You didn't have the gore. You didn't have like some of the stuff they do on these pay-per-views. You didn't have that in this match, right? So they had to be silly and they had to come up with other creative ways, right, to keep people engaged. So that would be my only critique of that. I just think it went on for longer than it had to. But I had fun with that match. The match that I personally was looking forward to the most, because it's been something that has been, I think, very well built. People talk about story in AEW. They don't do enough story. Or we hear that criticism a lot. And they do tell stories in AEW. They're not always great stories, but they do tell stories in this company. The one story that I have been all in on from the moment it started, Konosuke Takeshita, Kazuchika Okada. And the fact that neither one of these men have any love for the other. Yet they're both part of the same heel faction. And they've been building tensions between these guys now for what feels like more than a year. We got a little taste of it back in December in the Continental Classic. But I said at the time, it was a good match back in December on that pay-per-view. It was good. It was good, but it was not what I know these guys can deliver. I was still waiting for that match between them where they just went balls out and they had the match that I know the two of them can put together. And then I started worrying that Tony Khan was going to wait. He was going to hold off on it until they got to Wembley Stadium. And I said, boy, it's a long ways away. I don't know how much longer you can really drag this out for. And tonight we got the match that I was hoping we would get. That was, to me, it was perfect. That match right there, for me, really the opener, I won't take anything away from the opener, but that match to me is what really defined this show and set the tone for me for the rest of the show. Because when that match was over, to me, it was just perfection. It was everything I was hoping that match would be, right down to the finish. And Takeshita winning the International Championship. And then we got a little bit of a surprise at the end with the return of Kyle Fletcher, who I was not expecting to see back on television this soon. I mean, the way that his injuries were being described in some of these online reports, I mean, you would think that he injured multiple parts of his lower anatomy, and we weren't going to see this guy for at least 9 months. He missed 2. And he was back tonight, and he looked to be in tip-top shape. So that's quite the pickup there, quite the addition now that Tony Khan has in getting Kyle Fletcher back, who turned his back on Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita has officially been booted from the Callis family, which I think most of us probably figured was going to happen anyway. And now they've set up a potential match for him. Again, I think looking ahead to Wembley Stadium, I think we can kind of see what that TNT Championship match is probably going to be. But that match was fucking incredible that they had tonight. The Tag Team Championships on the line tonight. That was in the opening match. And we have new Tag Team Champions. Their names are Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. They would not be able to team together anymore if they did not win that match. I don't know how many people honestly bought into that. But suffice it to say, they did finally win the tag team titles. Fishhead, I certainly hope you're not talking about me because you don't want me going off on you. So just a little word to the wise there. Little word of warning there for Fishhead. But we also had the first of the Owen Hart tournament matches tonight. We had 3 of them here on this show. And it's hard to go back and forth between the 2 men's matches because the 2 men's matches were excellent tonight. Will Ospreay beating Samoa Joe. We had Swerve Strickland beating Bandido. Pretty clear what the direction is going to be, I think, for Forbidden Door next month. But even the women's match that we had with Mina, Shirakawa, and Athena tonight, it kind of... I don't envy the 2 of them being in the position that they were put in on the card. I still think they went out there, though, and had a good match. So we're going to talk about this entire card here from top to bottom. This was an excellent, excellent pay-per-view. This is your AEW Double or Nothing 2026 review. I'm the Solomonster. I know it's very late, so I will try to get you out of here as soon as I can. But hopefully you'll enjoy your stay. I know some of you guys are in different time zones, so it's not quite as late for you as it is here on the East Coast. And then, of course, we have our folks over in Europe who were looking at this probably going, oh, poor you. What is it, fucking 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning where some of you are? Oh, I don't envy you guys. Anyway, like and subscribe. Super chats are open. So get your messages on in, and I will be reading them a little bit later on here on the stream. We are going to spin the wheel in case we hit our likes goal for tonight. And we will do our Be the Booker segment a little bit later on. Jeremy's on the East Coast. Okay, so Jeremy knows. See, the thing is, though, it's Memorial Day. So most of you should not be working tomorrow, at least. I hope. That would make it far worse. Let's see how many likes we need. And then we'll get into this here. 475. I think that's going to be very easy for us tonight, considering we're already almost at 400. We're at 394. So we need less than 100 more likes. I think we are all but guaranteed to do Be the Booker tonight. So again, hit that like button. I want to take it back to the buy-in. I'm not going to spend too much time here on the pre-show, but a few things that I want to just go through here, and then we'll get into the main card. On the buy-in, though, we had new hosts, and I think this is the way it's going to be going forward. I think that's what Tony Khan said the other day. Renee Paquette was in the ring to open the show to introduce us to her co-host and the newest addition to AEW, the WWE Hall of Famer, no longer with WWE, Mick Foley, who came out. Of course, they were in New York. Mick Foley got a huge reaction coming out to the ring. This was officially his AEW debut here tonight, and Tony Khan tweeted earlier tonight, making it official that Mick Foley is all elite. So he has signed with AEW. This was not a one-off. We will be seeing him on the regular. He will be appearing on the pre-shows. He will be making select appearances on television. He will be doing ambassador work for the company. And I am certain that at some point, he will get that itch and he will be wrestling in AEW. And I don't think he needs to wrestle. I don't want to see him wrestle in AEW. But you and I both know this fucking guy is going to wrestle. He's probably watching Darby Allin tonight. It's taking everything in him not to go out there and jump off something. God bless Mick Foley. But yes, Mick Foley is officially all elite. So they made that official. And Foley talked about how this was one of the biggest nights of his life being here. It's been some time since he's been on a big show like this. And 15 years ago, he had lunch with Tony Khan. They've known each other for quite some time. He's considered him a friend ever since. And so he is happy to be here in AEW. Yes, Foley and Mox, Foley and Darby. I'm telling you, it's inevitable. There's no way, there is absolutely no way that Mick Foley is going to be hanging around these shows, especially like with some of these like these infectious crowds, when you get these really energetic crowds, and not going to be tempted to get back in the ring. And Tony Khan the other day actually said, Tony Khan did not come out and say, no, you know, we're not doing that with Foley. He's not here to wrestle. He all but said, like, yeah, if Mick wants to wrestle, I'd love for him to wrestle for us. You know, on the inside, he's like, he's dying for it. He wants Cactus Jack in the worst way. I wonder if he'd be able to be Cactus Jack. It's a good question. I wonder who owns the trademark for Cactus Jack. Or would he have to be Mick Foley? It's a good question. I don't know. I would imagine WWE has some ownership over that. Anyway, we had 3 matches on the pre-show. We had Divine Dominion, the women's tag team champions, Megan Bayne, Lena Cross, in a 5-minute challenge. This was an eliminator challenge against Viva Van and Zayda Steel. The challengers, I mean, they tried to stall for a little bit. This is more competitive than I thought it would be, considering it came down to the last 15 seconds. But the end result was what you would expect it to be. Double chokeslam finish by the champions. They pinned Zayda to win it. When it was over, now they came out to the ring with, the challengers did. Not that this was a title match. But they came out with Christopher Daniels in their corner. So when the match was over, the champions beat up Daniels. And then they laid out Viva Van until Anna Jay and Ty Conti ran out and chased off the champions. So that was that. We had the Ops, Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Anthony Bowens in a trios match against the Death Riders, Claudio, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta. What got the most heat was when Shibata wanted Claudio in the ring. And so when the two of them were in the ring and they were going at it, that really had the crowd amped up more than anything else here in this match. I don't like the finish. I don't like the Death Riders going over here. The reason I don't like it is because they just added Anthony Bowens to the Ops. And we already knew Samoa Joe was not winning his match on the pay-per-view. So at the very least, you would hope, like on the undercard, they would throw a little bone here to the other members of the Ops. And they couldn't even do that. The Death Riders go over. It did come down to Anthony Bowens having to fight all three of them off all by himself. And it was Anthony Bowens, of all people, who took the losing fall here. Claudio picks up the win. I mean, I guess Claudio is in the Owen. So maybe they want to keep him strong until he loses to whoever he's going to lose to in there. But at least they're trying something with Bowens, right? I don't see them doing anything right now with Max Caster. But, with Anthony Bowens, there's something there. It should not have taken them this long to try to do something and give him some sort of serious push. With any luck, he'll get some exposure out of this, more than he would be getting otherwise. But I thought he should pick up the win here, but Tony felt otherwise. And then we have Boom and Doom. We had QT Marshall, Big Boom AJ, who's like the MVP now of these pre-shows. They dust him off, they bring him in, he's always on the pre-show. Harley Cameron was out there with them. The Rizzler was out there, touching his face. That's the Rizzler. They teamed up with the conglomeration, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Mark Briscoe to take on Shane Taylor Promotions. This was a sponsored match. So we had the Vita Coco mascot. I don't know what the fuck Vita Coco as some sort of beverage, apparently. I don't know if it's some sort of... Is it just like a drink, or is it some sort of supplement? I don't know. I assume it's some sort of juice. But they had the Vita Coco mascot, like a juice box. That's the mascot. Come out with the baby faces to the ring, as if we have not gotten enough mascots on wrestling television lately. Coconut water. I'm being told it is coconut water. I see. I have not tried coconut water. This did not move me to try coconut water. But if I ever want to try coconut water, now I know what to try. It ended with a Tower of Doom spot with Big Justice and the Rizzler, the two kids, spraying the coconut water in the face of one of the heels, which allowed for a triple powerbomb spot, and the babyfaces got the win. Unfortunately, there was an injury. And so QT Marshall was up there on the ropes, and he was climbing to the top rope, and you could tell, like, he lost his balance, and you were like, hopefully he'll recover. And he didn't recover, and he fell. But he fell straight down. It's not like he fell, landed on his fucking head. But when he landed, it was very clear that he was in pain, and he was favoring his knee on the landing. So he was limping around. They sat him down in a chair because I was watching like in the corner of the screen. They sat him down on a chair. He pulled his knee pad down. The doctor came over to check on him. And so I don't know how serious it is. Apparently he was helped to the back. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, but that sucks. Big Boom AJ's face was also bloodied up. I think he got a cut on his neck, and the blood sort of smeared on his face. So when I mentioned earlier, like there was very little blood, this was like some of the only blood on the show, and it was just incidental. So again, I didn't see what happened. Maybe I don't know, maybe he started shaving during the match and he cut himself. I don't know. But he had blood smeared. Like the Rizzler is standing in the ring, and Big Justice is there, and fucking there's Big Boom AJ with blood fucking smeared all over his face at the end of the match. So it turned into a bit of a mess there at the end. And then Shane Taylor Promotions, they're all surrounding the ring on the apron. It's like, what's going to happen here? And they play Eddie Kingston's music. And what did he have, like a backpack on or something? He looked like a tourist. He looked like an escaped tourist, and he comes running down to the ring, gets this huge pop from the crowd. Him, Ortiz, Mance Warner, who caused a little controversy the other day. I talked about that on the Sound Off earlier. So they all came out. Apparently, they're all feuding with Shane Taylor Promotions and Ring of Honor and whatever. So they cut back to Renee and Mick in the ring after this, and they're talking about the main event tonight. And Foley is talking about MJF, and he mentions how, he himself, he has metal hips and all the injuries that Foley has had. MJF, meanwhile, has hair plugs from Turkey. And he predicts that Darby Allin is going to go home tonight with the AEW World Championship. That brought out MJF. So we didn't have to wait very long. Tony Khan brings in Mick Foley on day one. They've already got Foley and MJF in the ring together cutting promos on each other. And this is on the pre-show. So MJF said that he would care about the fans' opinions more if they weren't stupid enough to believe the Knicks are going to win a championship. I don't know if the Knicks are going to win a championship. I'm pretty sure they're going to sweep Cleveland out into the dumpster in the next couple of days. Beyond that, I have no idea. What I can tell you is that if Danhausen wants to work his magic, it's done pretty well for the Knicks so far. Ever since he uncursed the Knicks, they've gone 10-0. So if they can keep that momentum going, all they got to do is get Danhausen a front row seat. Just get him a courtside seat. And I think that championship belongs to them. So MJF, again, he's cutting a promo here on the crowd. And Foley said, look, he never thought he would have this moment again because he had goosebumps on his arms. He's like, let me just take this all in. Let me enjoy this moment here for a little bit. Foley said, yes, I've lost a lot of matches. He mentioned The Rock by name. The Rock got booed. I don't know what that's about. He mentioned The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And this fucking crowd booed the shit out of The Rock. And he said none of those matches, though, ended in 2 minutes and change, right? Alluding to MJF losing to Darby in 2 minutes. He goes, that's not a loss. That's a disgrace. And Foley told MJF to put his big boy pants on if he wants to deal with Darby. See, Foley, he was content to just go out there when he was wrestling and just steal the show. For Darby, though, that's not really good enough. He wants to go out there. He doesn't want to just keep the AEW World Championship. He wants to take your hair. And as he got closer to MJF, he's looking at his head, and he goes, I noticed that your hair is wavy. And he goes, well, you're going to be waving goodbye to your hair when this night is over. So MJF kicked Foley in the balls, so already he's taking a bump. And he kind of staggers into the ropes, and then he takes a bump and falls down on the mat. Darby Allin sprints out to the ring. MJF gets the hell out of Dodge. And Foley's not done yet. He's screaming into the microphone. He says to MJF, don't run, don't run. He says, I didn't know until about a month ago that I had inspired Darby's career. And he brought up Darby Allin wrestling Jon Moxley at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey some years ago, saying that this kid can do anything. And Foley stuck around and he watched that very thing happen. And he said, like himself, Darby was the weird kid, never picked for stardom, but he showed that he can do it. And he told Darby to win one tonight for the weird ones. I said earlier on the Sound Off, from Mr. Sacco to Mr. Sicko. That's what he is. He's Mr. Sicko now. And he goes, if I can quote an old friend of mine, bang, bang, Darby Allin. Bang, bang. I thought this was a great use of Foley to help promote your pay-per-view main event here in the closing minutes of your pre-show. That's what the pre-show should be for. Right? You had to imagine that there would be some people who would want to tune in when they heard Foley was going to be there just to see, what he was going to be doing. Because A, we haven't seen Foley on television in years, really. And he's obviously now working for a different company. So if you have these eyeballs on the pre-show, and now he's out there interacting with one half of your main event tonight, you're really leaning into this idea that he's going to get his head shaved. To me, that's a much better way. It's a much better hook for this pay-per-view than having a pre-show match that gets cut off by the top of the hour and just spills over into the opening of the pay-per-view. And they've done that a few times this year, but I thought this was a very effective way to use Foley on his first night. And that led into the pay-per-view. They opened the main card of tonight's show with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage challenging FTR for the AEW tag team titles. This was an I Quit New York street fight where if Christian and Copeland fail to win the titles, they can never again team up together. Some of the crowds lately, if you've watched when Copeland is there, and it really depends on like how big the venue is and what city they're in, but I've noticed some of these crowds, like when they cut off his Alter Bridge theme and they wait for the crowd to sing along, in some of these cities, it's kind of pathetic, where it kind of like tapers off, like peters out, and it's like they're waiting, but they don't really get into it. This was not one of those nights. This was absolutely not one of those nights. They killed the music. And the fans just full-throated. They just kept singing the song and singing the song and singing the song, and they were going crazy for it. Stokely Hathaway, early in this match, he handed a strand of barbed wire to Dax Harwood to wrap around his fist. Christian, though, ended up wrapping it around the middle rope instead, and there was a drop toe hold. Dax ended up on the ropes, basically in the barbed wire. And it was after this. It was honestly after this match. Because it's like every time FTR wrestles on one of these big shows, they fucking bleed. Like Dax bleeds all the time. The fact that he didn't bleed here, I think, was a big giveaway. Like, okay, something's up here. We're probably not going to be getting a lot of blood on the show tonight. Because if FTR didn't bleed and Moxley didn't bleed, there's something going on. But he, at one point, took out a toolbox. Dax did. He went to go use it on Cage as a weapon. And pliers got pulled out. He was wrenching at Dax's nose. Harwood's yelling into the microphone. No. Because, again, it's an I Quit match, right? No pins, no submissions. They end up outside with Copeland. Copeland took a spike pile driver onto the Spanish announce desk. So Wheeler jumped from the English announce desk to the other one where Dax had Copeland. Spike pile driver. That took Copeland out of the picture for several minutes. So Christian was all by himself. And I don't know where he got it from, I guess under the ring, but Wheeler brought out a cinder block. And they did this weird spot where they had Christian's injured forearm, like being held down on top of the steps. And I think the spot was supposed to be they were going to hit him with a cinder block. Christian moved out of the way at the very last second. And so they took his arm and they put it through. There was like a hole, an opening in the cinder block. They put his arm through the cinder block and held it there. And then Dax took a chair to the cinder block. So it makes a great noise. But like I'm watching this spot and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, see, even Asuka agrees. I'm watching this. I go, why would that have any effect on his hand? Like, just fucking hit him with the fucking chair. But he's smacking the cinder block 3 or 4 times with it. In Cage, they ask him, do you want to quit? And he says, go fuck yourself. Actually, no, what was it that he said? I think at that part is where he said, I fucked your mother or something like that. And then the crowd ends up bursting into, he fucked your mom chant. Never thought I'd hear that chant on this show. But here we are. So anyway, a little bit later on in the match here, Harwood was in a bad position. He was in a compromising position. He was on his knees and he's begging off. Wheeler sees this. He's outside the ring. He gets a mic. And he goes, no, don't, because Copeland had a chair. Don't, I'll say it, he says. Right? They're stalling. I'll say it. And it was just a distraction. Stokely Hathaway, he ends up hitting Copeland with Christian's gold watch. Now, how many of you remember the gold watch that he swiped about a month ago from Christian's wrist? I barely remembered it myself, but he had the gold watch. He used it as a weapon here. And so FTR, they tried to connect with a shatter machine when all of a sudden we hear Beth Copeland's theme. We have not seen Edge's wife. We have not seen Copeland's wife since All Out last fall. She took a spike pile driver from FTR. She has not been seen since. So this was her return. And she walked out here, and the look on Stokely's face was priceless. So she comes out, and I got to say, actually, before I even get into what she did here, I have to say, and I noticed that the last time we saw her on pay-per-view as well, she's still in great shape. She still comes out there. She's got that mean face and everything. I'm just saying, like, if they wanted to use her, if she wanted to get back in the ring, even just part-time or something, she could easily do it. If she wanted to be full-time, we happen to have a vacancy right now when it comes to the TBS championship. Could be a good place for her to be, I'm just saying. Could always use her in the women's division, especially now that we're going to lose Willow for God knows how long. She's going to be out for a while. We don't even know if Mercedes is coming back. They brought back Camille, and I don't know where she's been lately. You could do worse. You could do worse than having Beth Phoenix in your women's division. So she beats the crap out of Stokely. Harwood, though, blindsided her and sent her crashing face first into the ring steps. So he brings out lighter fluid. This is setting up the finish here. There's a table at ringside. They did the WrestleMania 22 spot, appropriately involving Mick Foley and Edge. The table is at ringside. He is, when I say dousing the table, like if this was a gun, I would say that he emptied the clip. I don't think there was any more liquid left in the bottle. By the time he was done emptying this thing on this table was drenched. And he had the barbecue lighter, and he sets the table on fire. And what they're doing is they're setting up Stokely. He has Beth on the apron. And, Wheeler gets into position. There's going to be a big dive spot here. So Harwood sets the table on fire. Wheeler charges in. Beth moves, and Wheeler ends up spearing Stokely by accident through the flaming table. And the entire crowd breaks into chants of holy shit. Tony Schiavone on commentary said, it's only the first match and they're already burning people. Welcome to an AEW pay-per-view. At least they weren't bleeding. Harwood was going to go give a concerto to Copeland, telling him to say, I quit if he wants to see his daughters tomorrow. Beth hits a low blow, though, on Harwood. And Christian hits a punt kick low. Copeland hits a pile driver. Christian sinks in a scorpion deathlock. So Harwood is screaming, no, no, no. Copeland locks in simultaneously a crossface. Harwood again, he's refusing to quit. So Copeland signals to Beth to go get something. And she turns the ring steps over, and hidden under the ring steps is Spike. The board with the nails in it. Like Janice from TNA. So she gives Spike to her husband. He digs the nails into Dax's forehead while he's still trapped in this scorpion deathlock. And finally he says, I quit. And the place explodes, and we have brand new AEW Tag Team Champions. This was a great fucking opener. It was a great opener with just a molten hot crowd who badly wanted to see Cope and Christian win those tag team titles. And so for the first time, think about this, for the first time in a quarter of a century, 25 years it's been since these men held tag team championships together. They're once again tag team champions. It was the right outcome in front of the right crowd. It had to be this way. And they didn't do themselves any favors, I think, by adding that stipulation that, because it was already an I quit street fight. How many fucking stipulations do you need? But they couldn't help themselves. And then they were like, well, if Cope and Christian lose, then they can never team up again. And it's like, well, all right, you're kind of giving the game away here. So it was a very predictable finish, but it was still the right finish. And now the possibilities are endless, because you look ahead now as we head into the summer, and we head into Forbidden Door, and then we have All In. We'll see if they add another pay-per-view in July. There's been rumors of a redemption pay-per-view. Nothing's been announced. But as we head into Wembley Stadium, because Cope and Christian are not going to be holding the titles, I can't imagine, for very long. I would kind of be surprised, to be honest with you, if they're still the champions beyond All In. I think they may lose them there. What kind of match are we looking at here? Is Tony going to give us Cope and Christian against the Young Bucks? Or is he just going to lump a bunch of teams together in one big match on one of these pay-per-views? Are we going to get a triple threat match? Are we going to get FTR, Cope and Christian, and the Young Bucks? Are they going to throw ladders in there? Are they going to try to replicate TLC? What about these two teams that are going to be free agents very soon? In fact, by the end of July, the Motor City Machine Guns are going to be available. In fact, Dynamite is coming to the Motor City on July 29th. What great timing. That's only a month before Wembley. What about the New Day? You and I both know the New Day are going to end up in AEW. All right. I'll bet my left nut they're going to end up in AEW, guaranteed, right? Everybody has to know that. Instead of the New Day, they'll be the New Dawn, and they're going to come in. How do you introduce them? Is it too soon? Or do you throw them in some kind of big, like, four-way match? Cope and Christian, the Young Bucks, FTR, the New Dawn, or New Day, or whatever they call. I'm just throwing that out there. Whatever the fuck they're going to call themselves. But you got the Machine Guns. There's a lot of possibilities here. You know, their tag team division, in many ways, if you look at, you know, who they have in the division, who they will soon likely have in that division, it's this embarrassment of riches compared to other companies when it comes to their tag team division. So there's really any number of different matches they could put together. So, not a bad problem to have. We'll find out, though, what the Wembley match ends up being. Look at what has been activated. Yeah, I think New Era has been taken, Pedro. I think they would get a cease and desist if they tried to go with that. I just said the New Dawn. I mean, they could come up with something completely different, but if you want to try to keep it similar, right? It's still a new D. I'm just saying. Stan the man, thank you. Oh, let me mention this. Raph has 23 months of membership. Shout out to Raph. Watching Darby gives me even more back pain. I was worked into thinking that he would retain, but I'm satisfied by the result. Hell of a title reign and a pay-per-view. Hey, Raph, thank you, man. I appreciate the 23 months. Midnight Hour could be... Midnight Hour is what they should come up with a pay-per-view called Midnight Hour, but that's every fucking pay-per-view. Ends in the midnight hour. I was going to say, you could have an AEW pay-per-view by that name, but that's every pay-per-view. From that insanity, we went to Kazuchika Okada, defending the AEW International Championship against Konosuke Takeshita. And to just show you that I was not the only one looking forward to this match, right from the opening bell, we had chants of holy shit. And you could just hear it. You could feel, I wasn't even there. You could feel the energy in that building. They got the wide crowd shot. Just great atmosphere that you would hope for a match that you have been teasing and building for so long. You never know, right? When you finally pull the trigger and you do it, it depends on the building and the city. You hope that you get rewarded, right? For telling a good story, for building up a feud and a match that people are going to want to see. And New York City was the perfect place for this match. So we got holy shit chants right out of the gate. Okada missed a Rainmaker. Takeshita missed a Raging Fire into the stalemate. And these people are fired the fuck up. Okada did slow the pace down. This is what Okada does, especially when he knows he's going to go for a while. This was not like a New Japan Okada match that goes 45 minutes, but this is what Okada does. You got to slow the pace down. And he didn't seem to be taking things too seriously. There were some lackadaisical covers in there that just seemed to piss off Takeshita. Later on in the match, it was a bastard driver by Takeshita into a release German, which Okada no-sold into a shotgun dropkick, which was then no-sold by Takeshita. And Okada then turned him inside out with a discus lariat. Back and forth these guys went, and the crowd was just lapping this shit up. So each man is slugging it out on the apron. Takeshita signals for a Raging Fire. Okada, though, slides back into the ring, and he hits a Rainmaker. He folds him up on the apron, and then he falls to the floor. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I have never seen a Rainmaker delivered on the apron in that way. So outside, Okada spikes Takeshita with the DDT, and he was going to deliver a tombstone. Now, Don Callis is sitting right there on commentary. He's watching all of this unfold. These are his boys. And he gets up off commentary. He begs Okada, don't do it. All right, you'll break his neck. Right? These are his meal tickets. Right? So Okada doesn't do it. Okada gets back in the ring. And he went back out to go get Takeshita. And he spiked Okada with a brainbuster on the floor. And this was not what Callis wanted. Callis is very upset about this. So he got up in Takeshita's face. Takeshita got up in his face. He even flipped him off. Basically told him to fuck off. before heading back inside for a haluva kick and a superplex, but he held on. Okada floated over. They traded some strikes until Takeshita hit a high bridging German suplex for a 2 count. He called for the power drive knee, but he got caught into a tombstone. So Okada, he flips off the crowd. Takeshita, though, he starts to hulk up. And he ducks a Rainmaker into a beautiful Blue Thunder Bomb. And then he charges for the knee, but he ran right into an Emerald Flosion. Takeshita rolls through a Rainmaker into a very close cradle. A little too close for a 2 count. Backslide from Okada into a Rainmaker. Maintain wrist control. But he missed another one when he went for it. Then Takeshita ran right into a picture-perfect dropkick. The Rainmaker got countered into one by Takeshita. And that got a huge rise out of the crowd. He hit the power drive knee. Okada kicked out at 1. Then we got the home run forearm shot that drops Okada. And Takeshita finally put him away with the Raging Fire to win the championship. And that ends the reign of Kazuchika Okada, who won that title when he unified the belts. Remember the unified title? Remember that? That's when he beat Kenny Omega in Texas last year at All In. So that reign has now come to an end. And this starts Takeshita's second run with the championship, which goes back to... when did he lose that title? That had to be the spring of last year. All right, because it ended up on Omega. Yeah. Had to be like March or April of last year. It's been a while since Takeshita's had the international title. What can I say about this? This is the best of professional wrestling. First of all, you have 2 guys who are just great fucking pro wrestlers who know how to go in there and have a great match. I like the story they've told over these many, many months with these 2 men, right? It was not anything that was like so out of the box creative. It was actually very basic. But it just worked. Okada is this great shithead heel. He is this great, just absolute asshole. And just knew how to push Takeshita's buttons. The fans love Takeshita, even though he's part of a heel faction. So you kind of knew for a while now that eventually something was going to happen, and he was either going to quit or he was going to get kicked out, right? But you kind of knew the path that he was on. But just the way that Okada would needle him, he knew how to get under this man's skin, right? Every promo he would cut, unlike Takeshita, like I have, just every single week. But this goes back so long, you run the risk of burning it out where people don't care. So when they had their match in the Continental Classic, like I said earlier, it was a good match. But there was so much left that they didn't do. And I'm like, man, how long are we going to have to wait to get the rematch now? That was in December. It's almost June. We've waited long enough. This was the right setting for it. 14,000 people in New York City. They knew the assignment. They treated this match like it was the biggest thing on the entire card. And it was one of the biggest things on the entire card. And when he won the match, it was just this great, everything that you would hope for in terms of how the crowd would react to it. Everything just fell right into place. This was excellent. Just an excellent match. In my opinion, the best match on the entire show. My favorite match of the night. Can't say enough good things about this. It delivered exactly the way that I was hoping it would. But we were not done yet. We had another big angle coming up here at the end of the match. Mark Davis, Rocky Romero, and Don Callis, they join Okada in the ring. And they're standing right across from Takeshita. And they're acting like they're maybe about to boot him out of the group. Takeshita's, basically he's in a standoff position here where he's ready for anything. And then we hear Kyle Fletcher's music. And out comes the Protostar. And he walks in. The guy is wearing a salmon suit and he's aura farming. He is wearing, if you saw the show, you know the suit he was wearing. And he is aura farming as he comes down to the ring. So he ditches the jacket. He storms into the ring. And at first he's standing side by side with Takeshita. And Okada and the Callis family, they retreat. They leave the ring. Fletcher turns around. He and Takeshita, they embrace, right? Big hug, right? Proto Shida. And all seems well. But look, if you're a wrestling fan for more than 15 minutes, you kind of had a sense of where things were headed here. I didn't know if they were going to pull the trigger tonight or if they were going to save it maybe for Dynamite, but it was pretty clear where this was going at this point. And sure enough, he downs Takeshita with a lariat. and everybody boos. And Okada's smiling, Callis is smiling. They all, get back in the ring. And he picks up Takeshita and he drops him with a brainbuster. Again, the other members of the Callis family come into the ring. Fletcher bends down to go pick up the international title at the same time that Okada does the same thing. So they're both holding it. They're staring at each other. Okada lets it go and says, okay. And he wants them to hold Takeshita, and then Fletcher blasts him in the head with the international title. And that is how things ended up. Now, a lot happened here. There was a lot that happened here in this segment. We finally got the payoff with Okada and Takeshita. We got the title change. We got the surprise return of Kyle Fletcher. We got his turn. We got Takeshita being booted, right, out of the Callis family. And they set up Kyle Fletcher as a future challenger for the International Championship. So this was not just a great wrestling match. We had a very productive segment here. A lot of shit happened that set things in motion now for where we are headed going into their big event of the summer. Now, Fletcher hurt his knee in late March. We were told it was a meniscus tear. I don't remember if it was a full tear, a partial tear. But at the time when those reports came out from Fightful and all the other outlets that were reporting on it, they said that it wasn't just the torn meniscus. He had other lower body injuries, and they made it sound like he really fucked himself up, and we're not going to be seeing him for a while. That's why he had to vacate the TNT Championship, because they weren't expecting him back for a while. So when they hit his music here, I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting him to be here, but I thought, okay, whatever. He's in the middle of his rehab, and he can come out and make an appearance. But he walked out to the ring and he looked totally normal, right? There was no limping. There was no crutch. There was no knee brace. And then he got physical and he hit the brainbuster and he walked out and he left with the rest of them, and they set up a wrestling match for him in the near future. So apparently I assume he's cleared, and I assume he's back for good. That to me was the biggest surprise of the entire thing, because I thought his knee was so fucked up that he had surgery and he was going to be out for fucking 8 months. So it was nice to see him back a lot sooner, and that makes me think that the match for All In Wembley is going to be Fletcher challenging Takeshita for the international title. I don't know where Okada fits into all this. I'm not saying it's going to be a triple threat. If he even wrestles on that show, maybe he'll be doing something else. But that's going to be a hell of a match if that's what they're setting up for that show. So we'll see. But I loved everything about this. I can't say enough good things about this. We had our first of 3 Owen Hart Foundation tournament matches tonight, with Athena taking on Mina Shirakawa. Now, it was supposed to be Willow Nightingale taking on Alex Windsor. That was going to be on the pay-per-view tonight. Unfortunately, Willow suffered a shoulder injury. She was forced to pull out of the Owen. She was forced to vacate her TBS championship. Who knows? Maybe she'll pull a Kyle Fletcher and she'll be back in 2 months. But for the time being, she's gone. And so instead of doing the match with Alex Windsor and the wild card entrant, they slotted this match in on the show instead. I did not envy these two women having to follow those first 2 matches. The crowd was so insanely hot for those first 2 matches. And those first 2 matches were so great. This was always going to have to end up being the come down match. Doesn't mean it has to be a bad match, though. It doesn't mean it has to be a throwaway match. It wasn't. They had a good match. But yes, the crowd was not as hot for it as it was the first 2. That doesn't mean it wasn't. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a good match. Mina targeted Athena's knee. That became the story, really, of the match. Doesn't mean that Athena wasn't giving it right back to her, though, because she was. They had a very competitive match. Mina sent Athena to the floor. She had a corkscrew dive out onto her, and Mina rolled Athena back inside, hit a missile drop kick. There was a move here where she spiked Athena. It was like a head scissors. It's like a head scissors takedown. And she took the move in such a way where it looked like Athena got spiked head first down into the mat. So she locked Athena in the figure 4 leg lock, but she grabbed the bottom rope to get the break. Mina wanted her glamorous driver. Athena countered into a jumping tombstone. Had a lot of tombstones on this show. We had tombstone in the Okada match. We had a tombstone here. We had tombstone in the main event, which actually was the finish. It's a lot of tombstones. the man who popularized the tombstone. He's got a big show that he's booking coming up next weekend in Monterrey, Mexico. This made me think of him for some reason. So anyway, she hit a jumping tombstone, and then Athena went up top. She hit a proper O-face after hitting one. She went for one off the middle rope earlier, and I don't think it worked. But she hit the O-face, and she got the win. So Athena, really to the surprise of no one, advances to the next round of the tournament because this could not go any other way. You cannot have a woman who has been Ring of Honor Women's World Champion for over 1,250 days. She has beaten everybody there is to beat. She's practically unbeatable, right? She's lost a few matches, but not very many. You cannot have her go in there in the opening round of this tournament and lose to a woman who eats L's every single week. That just doesn't make any sense. I like Mina, but she was not winning this match. At no point was there even a thought in any rational human being's mind that she might win this match. This was the only possible outcome. Now, she was selling a knee injury in this match. Is this going to extend into the next round? Is this going to extend into the finals, assuming she makes it to the finals, which I think she will? I would think so, and maybe they did that on purpose to give her an out for when she eventually loses, because I'm still sticking with Persephone as my pick to win the entire thing. I think we may end up getting Persephone and Athena in the finals. That knee injury may come into play in those matches. That could be her out when she eventually loses. That's what I'm thinking. But she will now meet the winner of the match between Sky Blue and Suri, assuming Suri is able to actually wrestle in the tournament because she's currently out nursing a neck injury. So we'll find out. But this was good. Again, this match wasn't even supposed to happen on the show. But it was good. Now we had Jon Moxley defending the Continental Championship against Kyle O'Reilly. This was a rematch from their match on Dynamite this week. Only this time it was no time limit. They went to a draw on Wednesday. So tonight it was no time limit. And Jim Ross replaced Tony Schiavone on commentary here for this match. I gave the update on the podcast on the Sound Off earlier today, or I guess yesterday now, that Jim Ross is physically, he's feeling as good as he's felt in a long time, but unfortunately the doctors are very concerned that he may have dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And it's weird, the way he spoke about it on his podcast was kind of very matter of fact. It's like, okay, he was telling them if there's pills or drugs for me to take to be proactive, like tell me and I'll take them. He hasn't been officially diagnosed with anything, but that's very scary. Obviously, if they're concerned about it, then there's obviously something going on there. But he was back on commentary tonight, and I thought he sounded good. You know, there are times where they'll bring in JR and he's having a bad night. And then there are times where he's on his A game. And it's like, all right, his fastball may not be as fast as it used to be, but he still got it in him. You know what I mean? Give him a good match to call, and he could still do it. And I felt like tonight was one of the better nights for him. But I think this was the only match that he did commentary for. They didn't even bring him back out for the main event. So they kept it to this one match. This is the one that they gave him. Kyle, he threw, in the match, he threw a kick early. They were outside the ring. And Moxley was up against the post, and he threw a kick, and Moxley moved, and he kicked the post. And so now he was nursing a foot injury. And so, like, in the ring later, he was trying to do certain spots, and his leg would buckle, and so he would fall to the mat, and Moxley would target the knee or target the leg. So Moxley planted him with a Death Rider. Then he got a rear naked choke. O'Reilly, though, slid out into an ankle lock. Moxley was able to pick the bad ankle, and both men had the submission locked in until O'Reilly got a roll up for a near fall. Moxley never let go, though. And O'Reilly was scrambling, but he had no choice but to tap out. That's the Cliff Notes version of what happened here. When the match was over, the Conglomeration and the Death Riders, they both came out to, kind of be with their guy. And Moxley got to his feet. He offered a handshake, and O'Reilly accepted. So for all of the animus between them going back to last year, this pretty much put this to bed once and for all. This settled it. Now there was kind of a handshake of mutual respect, and now they'll both go their separate ways. This was a very good Yeah, I know JR. Yeah, that Iceman says JR unfortunately did not seem too familiar with Kyle. He kept calling him kid. This kid. It seemed like he was forgetting his name. He did call him by his name later on, like when the match was over. But yeah, I noticed that too, and I'm not attributing that to anything other than him just forgetting O'Reilly's name. Hopefully, that's all it was. It was a senior moment. We all have them. I have them too, and I'm not 74 years old like Jim Ross is. This was a very good match, a very good mat-based pro wrestling match. It was not as flashy. It was not as exciting as the opening two matches were, not even close. You had a lot of limb work, right? Working body parts in this match. It was very similar to the match they had on Wednesday, but, again, this time we had a decisive finish. It sucks for Kyle because if you think back to what they were doing late last year with him and Moxley, he was beating Moxley, and they were telling this story where Moxley was terrified of being caught in the ankle lock, right? So he was always trying to make sure he would do whatever it takes to make sure he didn't get trapped in that hole, because this is when I foolishly thought that this was leading to him leaving the Death Riders and they were going to break them up. And of course, that never happened. But Kyle actually had some momentum on his side. And then remember Blood and Guts and what they did there. And Kyle was super over. But he got hurt. So he missed several months. And missing all those months with that injury, whatever the injury was, really stymied his momentum. Because he came back, was it Dynasty? Came back not that long ago, maybe a month ago. And it's like, there's just nothing, Nobody really cares all that much. They don't care in the way that they cared last year. So whatever momentum he had, I feel like was just kind of squandered because he got hurt, which it's not anybody's fault. I mean, shit happens, but I think that really hurt him. And now that this is over, it's like, okay, I think that's basically it. I don't know that there's really anything else to do with him specifically. The other thing that also I think worked against it is that the last time we saw him feuding with Moxley was pretty well defined as a heel. And I don't know what the hell he's supposed to be now. He's more of a babyface now than a heel. So it's a very different situation than the way it was late last year. So that's all for Kyle now. I said this earlier on the Sound Off. I don't think Moxley should lose a match, not one match, until he loses to Will Ospreay. Because I don't see how you don't do that match sometime before All In. Like, that match has to happen at some point. If it's a Forbidden Door, or if they do add a new pay-per-view in July and they want to do it there. But this story they're telling with Ospreay and the Death Riders, I feel like, how do you not get to a Moxley Ospreay rematch? Because the last time they wrestled, Moxley won. How do you not do that match with the idea that Moxley tells him, this is your final test? Right? Because they're training him. They're training him to bring out like the best version of himself, to make sure that this is a man who is prepared to be the AEW World Champion. How is Moxley not the final test? He has to be. So I don't think he should be losing any matches until we get to that point. And by the way, that does not need to be for the Continental title. Fuck that. I'm not talking about that. They kicked off the men's Owen Hart tournament with Will Ospreay one-on-one with Samoa Joe. Ospreay was 12 years old when he decided he wanted to become a pro wrestler. And what inspired him was the famous three-way match at the TNA Unbreakable pay-per-view in 2005 with AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe. So Samoa Joe is one of the men who inspired Will Ospreay to want to do this for a living. And coming into tonight, the two of them had never wrestled one-on-one before. So Ospreay had mentioned coming into this was for him, this was a dream match. First time they've ever wrestled one-on-one. Tony Schiavone tagged back in on commentary to replace Jim Ross. Taz was added for the remainder of the show to replaced Nigel McGuinness at this point. Ospreay entered first, and they showed Moxley was still in the crowd because his match had just concluded. He was in the crowd. The Death Riders were there with him. And Moxley is like pumping his fist like he's like cheerleading almost for Ospreay. As soon as Joe hit the ring, Ospreay got things right, like going right out of the gate with an Os cutter. Like he did not waste any time. Joe wasn't even ready yet. I thought they were going to go for like the shock finish where it's over in like 10 seconds. I'm like, you can't do Joe like that. You can't do that. You can't give us this fucking Saturday night's main event, Becky Lynch, Sol Ruca bullshit finish here, okay? You can't be doing that. But he was just right out of the gate with that Os cutter. And so just like that, the match was underway. Quick pace. Joe popped right back up, though. He mowed Ospreay down with a big uppercut. So Joe found himself outside a little while later. Ospreay attempted a Sasuke special, but he landed on his feet and right into the clutches of the Coquina clutch before Joe took him over by the LED barricade. And he just took his head and smashed the back of his head up against the barricade very violently. So inside, Joe wanted a muscle buster. Ospreay escaped into a double stomp to the left arm. Ospreay tried another Os cutter. Joe did his nope spot and just walked away. Crowd popped. Joe wound up for a lariat. Ospreay spun out into a Styles Clash to Samoa Joe. Only for a 2 count. Ospreay connected with a hidden blade. Joe kicked out. And Ospreay threw away the elbow pad. He went for it again. Ran right into a snap power slam instead. Joe got the Coquina clutch applied. Ospreay started to fade. And the referee was doing the gimmick where it drops once, it drops twice, it drops 3 times. Because sometimes in these companies, man, it's just funny how there's no consistent rules anywhere. Sometimes they'll do that spot and it's the 3 times, which is like an old school... I think that might have been more of a WWF thing. Most of the time, they treat it like a shoot, like if it was like an MMA fight or something or whatever. It drops once, the guy's out, that's it, fight's over. So they didn't do that here. They did the dramatic once, they did the dramatic twice, and then on the 3rd time, Ospreay's hand landed on the bottom rope, so they got the break. Joe wanted a muscle buster. Ospreay, though, landed on his feet, and then he blasted him with a hidden blade. Joe kicked out at 1. So 1 more hidden blade followed, this time to the back of the head, and that was enough for Ospreay to secure the 3 count to advance in the tournament. Yes, I know. Rules in wrestling, silly Solo. I know. Nobody pays attention to the rules. Nobody cares about the rules anymore. When we don't have rules... we have anarchy. It's like what the Joker said in The Dark Knight. Solomonster expecting consistency in wrestling is a rookie mistake. I ain't no rookie. So after the match, out on the floor, Joe bowed to Ospreay, who was inside, as a show of respect, and he walked to the back. This was an excellent match. I very much enjoyed this. This was the best Samoa Joe match, frankly, that I've seen. And I love Joe, but this was like Ospreay brought the best out of this guy. And so this was the best Joe match in a while. I felt like this was the best Ospreay match since he came back from the neck injury. So this was great. And now Ospreay waits to find out whether it's going to be Mark Davis or Jack Perry that he wrestles in the next round. I'm thinking Mark Davis. I'm hoping Mark Davis. Mark Davis is the national champion. Mark Davis has some history with Will Ospreay. Used to be friends. I think that would be cool as a semifinal match because it doesn't matter whether it's Mark Davis or Jack Perry. We all know Ospreay's going to the finals. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Then we had our final Owen Hart tournament match of the night. We had Swerve Strickland against Bandido. Yes, Joe is he was in prime TNA shape tonight. I don't know about TNA shape, but Joe was on his A game tonight. That's for sure. But now we get to Swerve and Bandido. A slower pace early than we saw in the previous match, but boy, did this pick up there at the end. Bandido at one point did a military press, and you know how he has the guy up? And then he'll drop one arm. He'll do it one-armed. So he did that with Swerve, sent him to the floor. Swerve ended up on a chair at ringside, and Bandido, he was on the apron. He charged, connected with a flipping senton onto Swerve on the chair. So back inside, Bandido was looking for a spear in the corner. Swerve moved, and Bandido crashed into the turnbuckles. And then Swerve really slowed things down for a while here. Bandido, though, later on connected with a frog splash. Swerve comes back with a flatliner. So Bandido goes to hoist Swerve up. This spot was something else. Swerve stands on Bandido's shoulders. He's balancing himself on the man's shoulders, and he hits a house call kick from Bandido's shoulders. I've never seen that before. Not from Swerve. I just wrote like WTF. That's what I wrote here. And then the Swerve stomp followed. He got a 2 count, and then Bandido kicked out. And the people are losing their minds for this. So on the apron, Swerve gets Bandido on his shoulders, but he reverses Poison Rana by Bandido to the floor. So Swerve took that bump off the apron down to the floor. It looked as safe as it can possibly be when you're taking a Poison Rana from the apron to the floor. So that was crazy. Back in the ring, Swerve is on the mat, and we see the deadlift into the 21 plex by Bandido, and he got a near fall out of it because he couldn't hold the bridge. His neck gave out. Swerve had been working over his neck. So on the spot, his neck gave out from all the damage that Swerve had done to it. So then after that, we ended up code red position. Bandido, though, hops up. He fires off a Hurricane Rana, spikes Strickland into the mat, and now he's back in the rope. So here comes another attempt at a 21 plex. He goes for it. This time, though, it gets countered into a vertebreaker. Like, Swerve cuts this shit off in like mid-move, and he turns it into a vertebreaker. And then comes the house call kick and the 3 count for Swerve. The spot where he was standing on Bandido's shoulders, to me, that was crazy. And again, people lost their minds for it. It's like in the last few minutes of the match, there was this new gear that they just kind of kicked into that just took that match to the next level. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, like, okay, which match was better? This one or Ospreay and Joe? As a match, I probably enjoyed Ospreay and Joe more, but I thought both Owen Hart matches tonight on the men's side were just fucking excellent. They both deliver. They were both fantastic. And so we're one step closer, I think, to the obvious match that a lot of us think is going to be in the finals at Forbidden Door next month, which is going to be Swerve and Ospreay. And it's the match that makes the most sense. It might be predictable. Predictable is not always bad. I always say that. Sometimes it is. But predictable does not mean bad. You look at the bracket as it currently exists, right? You got Mark Davis, and you got Brody King, and you got Claudia. A lot of talented guys are still in this tournament. The match that makes the most sense, the biggest marquee match they can do on that Forbidden Door pay-per-view when it comes to the Owen, is Swerve and Ospreay. It's a rematch from 2 years ago. Swerve won that one. This will be Ospreay's time now. Because it ain't going to be Swerve going to Wembley Stadium. It's going to be Will Ospreay. That's the match you do. We're now one step closer to making that a reality. Hey, Havili is with us. Havili is a sound-off superstar. Hey, Havili, what's going on, brother? You got to let me know what you thought of this pay-per-view. Haven't heard from you in a little bit. We had a 4-way for the AEW Women's World Championship with Thekla defending against Jamie Hayter, Kris Statlander, and Hikaru Shida. Thekla tried flying off the top rope with a crossbody. She got caught, and so Shida flew in with a drop kick onto the pile, and she covered everybody. She was trying to win this match, including her friend. I mean, it is every woman for herself here. It's not a fucking tag team match. But she also attempted to cover Statlander, which just pissed her off. Not the only time that Shida would be doing that to Statlander here in this match. Because she caught her with a leaping knee strike later on, which was an accident, but Shida basically shrugged it off like, all right, whatever, oh well. Which again, I would say, like, what did Shida do wrong here that Statlander would be this upset? All 4 women are trying, for the same thing. They're all trying to win the world championship. It's like Sid dumping Hogan out of the Rumble. And he got all pissy. He got all up in his feelings. Like, it's every man for himself, big boy. That's how it's supposed to work. So Shida hit a Falcon Arrow, transitioned into an ankle lock, but Statlander pulled her off. And Shida's apologizing, for what happened before. And then she just hauls off and she slaps Statlander. And Statlander just loses her shit. She starts beating the hell out of Shida all the way out to the floor. Rams her into the steps. She catches Jamie Hayter with a pump kick. Statlander leapfrogged a spear attempt by Thekla back in the ring. And she hits the Sunday Night Fever. We'll call it the Sunday Night Fever since it was Sunday night. Now it's Monday morning. Shida, though, gets into the ring and she breaks up the pin with a kendo stick. And Hayter grabs the kendo stick. The two of them spill out to the floor. Thekla gets to her feet, stomp to Statlander, and she picks up the win to retain the women's championship. This was the right outcome. You don't take the title off Thekla, I don't think, before you get to All In. Tekla's on a good roll right now. Let her run with it for a little while longer. I think Tekla's great. No reason to take the championship off her. Statlander and Shida have their own thing going on. Jamie Hayter is part of a tag team that will very likely be challenging for the women's tag team titles in London. It wouldn't have even made sense to take the belt off of her here. And I thought the work was good. There were a few spots that were a little herky-jerky, but I thought it was solid. I thought they had a solid match here. Then it was time for Stadium Stampede. This is where the insanity truly began. And we had Chris Jericho, we had Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, Kenny Omega, Jack Perry, and the Young Bucks against Ricochet, the Gates of Agony, Andrade El Idolo, Mark Davis, David Finlay, and Clark Connors. 7-on-7 in this match. We had a video intro. When they first started showing this video, I was like, oh, is this going to be cinematic the way the first one was during the COVID period? Because they showed like the heels are all arriving in their various vehicles and trucks outside the venue. And at that point, they cut to their proper entrance as they entered the arena. And I'm like, okay. I would think the fans in the building would be very upset if they come to find out that the match was already fully pre-taped. They pre-taped some of this, probably the day before. But so anyway, the heels entered the building. Then we got a video intro for Jericho's team. And I don't remember the name of the movie. They did this in the style of, I think, the credits for an old movie from like the 2000s, and I can't remember the name of it. But it was like each guy, they would show them, and then there was like a freeze frame, almost cartoon-like, and they would have their name on the screen. So they did that for each of these guys, and they set this to Devil's Dance by Metallica. When they got to Kenny Omega, now they're all wearing suits, or most of them anyway, were wearing suits. When they got to Kenny Omega and they showed him on the screen, everybody in the arena popped, and he's, smoking a cigar, and he starts coughing and choking on the cigar, which was kind of funny. I don't know why they were all wearing. They actually wore the suits during the match too. Jericho's wearing this suit, this sparkly suit. He looked like something that you would see on like the Vegas Strip if he had a fucking show like Siegfried and Roy or something like back in the day. So anyway, then they made their entrance to Judas, and everybody sang Judas. Again, I thought they were going to play music during the actual match. That's the one thing they didn't do. Oh, the movie was Snatch. Maybe it was Snatch. He inhaled the smoke. Yes, that's probably what I would do if I tried to smoke that thing. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. Poor guy just inhaled all the smoke. You're not supposed to do that. I got to give a hat tip to Ryan Howard from F4W Online for the recap on this one, because I gave up and just tried to watch and just enjoy the match, because it's damn near impossible to keep track of everything that was going on here in this match. So As we go along here, I'll just kind of pull from this, and it'll jog some memories here of this match. But it was what you would expect. Again, it's if you've seen Anarchy in the Arena, that's basically what this was. At different points, they would cut to like multiple screens. And then at other points, they would just cut to different parts of the arena outside the building because they kind of all branched off into their own areas. Again, I'm sure some of the backstage stuff was pre-taped and probably wasn't live. But in the ring, we had the Elite. All of them were teasing Terminator dives, but they got cut off by the Dogs and Mark Davis. Andrade hit the Three Amigos on Jack Perry in the ring. So he was going to go for a frog splash. He took too long. And Shelton Benjamin, man, how old is Shelton at this point? Is he 50 yet? If he's not 50, he's got to be, he's in that range. And I mean, the guy, he hasn't lost a step. He has not lost. He's a freak athlete. I remember him years ago saying that people get angry at him because they would ask him, like, what's your workout routine? Right? Like, what's your gym routine? And he made some comment to the effect of, like, either he didn't work out or he didn't have to work out. You hear something like that, it's like, this motherfucker doesn't have to work out. But for some people, it just comes natural. They're just a naturally gifted athlete. So anyway, he scaled the ropes, hit a knee lift as Andrade was taking too long to set up this frog splash. But then he walked right into a high-low from the Dogs. Anyway, we got some more wrestling here. I want to fast forward a little bit to some of the insanity here during this match. MVP was part of this. He was out there. And so he got involved a couple of different times here in the match as well. So I want to make sure I mention him. They had a spot where everybody was doing a dive of some kind, and then Jericho wanted to get in on the action. And so Jericho climbs up to the top rope, and he looks into the camera. He's like, And he does a dive out onto the pile. Everyone dove out onto the pile. That's what you got to do in wrestling, right? Everybody dives. Everybody dives. Doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. Everybody dives. So anyway, we see Lashley and Toa Leona. They end up brawling backstage. All of a sudden, like, Lashley is down on the ground. And he looks up and he's freaked out by something. And we can't see what it is. But then we see Lio Rush. The Blackheart. I got to see Lio Rush up close the other night. It scared the shit out of me. As I was trying to figure out what it was that I was looking at the House of Glory show. We had him in to wrestle on Friday night. And he kept talking to himself, and he was like in the fucking corner. He was talking about him. And I'm like, who is this him that he's talking about? Like, what entity is it that he is referring to here? I don't know. But apparently he was just in the back talking to himself, I guess, at Louis Armstrong Stadium because he didn't have a match tonight. But I saw them in this, like, there's Lio Rush and there's Bobby Lashley. And it took me back to those days on Monday Night Raw where they had put Lio Rush with Bobby. And this was during the period where Vince McMahon thought it would be funny if every week on TV, Bobby Lashley just bent over and smacked his ass. Remember that? He would just bend over and put his hands on his own ass. And he probably sat in the back and laughed his fucking ass off and found this hilarious. But Lio Rush was like his mouthpiece. He was his spokesperson for a while. Yes, Lashley. That's right. The Lashley days. So we had a little bit of a reunion here. So that was it. I mean, actually, Leo ended up biting Toa Leona. I think he bit him on the hand or he bit him on the fucking face, and then he jumped on his back. It was very brief. That was the last we saw of Lio Rush. So anyway, we go back to the ring, and Andrade is not having a very good time here with the baby faces. The Bucks and the Dogs, they brawled up onto the concourse. Clark Connors, he ate a super kick. He fell onto an escalator, which then took him up. All I was thinking as I'm watching this, because Clark Connors has long hair. He's got that shoulder-length long hair. I'm like, because he falls backwards, and I'm like, come on now. You got to be fucking careful. You got that long hair on that escalator. This is like Final Destination shit. Like, that freaks me out. Like, I just think back to when Triple H took the tombstone on the escalator at Penn Station from The Undertaker all those years ago. And his hair was even longer. And I'm like, man, you're really tempting fate when you do stuff like that. It is. See, it's Final Destination. I'm telling you. Imagine his hair gets caught and the escalator just keeps going. What do? I don't know. I don't even want to think about it, but thankfully that didn't happen to him. Now, when the escalator gets to the top, the Bucks are already there and they hit another super kick and he goes down the escalator. Andrade took out Jericho and Omega with a double spinning elbow. And then he goes over to the female fan in the front row and he's going to get the phone number and they're going to take the selfie. And there was a moment here where, and this was also kind of freaky. All of a sudden, there's a woman, what appears to be a woman in a blonde wig, except it's not a woman. It's Luchasaurus with a blonde wig on. And I think somebody on commentary, I'm almost positive somebody on comment, probably Taz, made reference to Gremlins. That's exactly what it reminded me of. It was like a scene out of one of the Gremlins movies where the gremlin has like the long hair. This was just freaky. And then he sprayed, I don't know, what did he spray? He like spit mist in Andrade's face. I guess there are some dinosaurs that can do that. I guess, what was that dinosaur that misted Wayne? God, what the fuck is that guy's name? The guy who played Newman on Seinfeld from the first Jurassic Park movie. There's that one dinosaur where like they're in the car and he comes face to face with this thing and it like spits fucking black goo in his face. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. In this case, it was green. So he missed it Andrade in the face. There was also some action in the back in like the catering area. Tommy Invincible was there, and so he ended up taking a bump in all of this. He got beat up, I think, by Mark Davis. Satnam Singh was sitting there with his back turned. He was eating food. I think Andrade bumped into him. Satnam got food all over his face, so he did the slow, like, stand up, and Andrade looks up at him. He's like, oh, fuck. It's like, uh-oh. Wayne Knight, yes. Was it a Velociraptor? Is that what it was? I don't think it was a Velociraptor. All I know is that scene still lives rent-free in my head from that movie. I think for me, that was the scariest scene in the entire movie. I think even more than when the kids are trapped in the car with the sunroof and the T-Rex is trying to get to them. I think it's that scene in the car with the dinosaur when it sprayed that shit in his face. Okay, it's not a Velociraptor. It's I can't pronounce this now. A Dilophosaurus? I don't even know what that is. We'll just call him a scary motherfucker, and we'll leave it at that. So then Satnam Singh starts throwing food. Big food fight breaks out backstage. The Dogs and the Bucks, they fight back up the aisle. Matt Jackson, he smashes the Dogs with some trash can shots. Clark Connors was placed in a shopping cart, and then they put a garbage can on top of him, on top of his head, while he's sitting in the shopping cart. And they start wheeling him down the aisle into a super kick. Nick Jackson gives a super kick to the garbage can. Toa Leona, he reappeared. He mowed down the Bucks, and he loaded Matt in the shopping cart. And then Bishop Khan flew in with a shotgun dropkick to the garbage can. Toa Leona, he lifted the shopping cart over his head. He starts throwing it around. I mean, just like it weighs nothing. Shelton Benjamin runs back out, and he got hit by the shillelagh shot by David Finlay. And Lashley also took a shillelagh shot. So we go backstage. Jericho and Ricochet are now brawling with tennis rackets. And actually, Ricochet has a normal-sized tennis racket. Jericho opens a door, and standing there is Luther, who has nothing to do anymore because Tony Storm is gone for the time being. So Luther is without his lady friend. The funny thing is, like Luther, the reason he even has a job in AEW is because of his friendship that goes back many years with Chris Jericho. So, I mean, those two guys are like this. So he got to do a little spot here with Jericho where he's standing there and he presents Jericho with this oversized tennis racket. This is like, it'd be like the Big Show's tennis racket. Remember when the Big Show used that large steel chair in his chairs match with Sheamus all those years ago? It was like this comically, just like gigantic chair. This was a comically gigantic tennis racket. So he uses that as a weapon on Ricochet. And then there's a tennis ball machine, and he starts firing balls at Ricochet. And Jericho made the cover. It is false count anywhere. Only got a 2 count. So we got the stereo Northern Lights suplexes from Matt Jackson and Shelton Benjamin to the dogs. And actually, Benjamin was doing the Germans. Suplexes, that is. And Matt was doing the Northern Lights suplexes. Again, just mass chaos here. Just mass chaos. And this is the point in the match where I was like, all right, you know what? This is... They were losing the crowd at one point where it started to get very quiet. And I was like, all right, this match has gone on for a little too long. Like, we need to send this home and wrap this. It had already gone over 20 minutes at this point. 20, 25 minutes. This did not need 31 minutes. I will say that. This did not need to go that long. Mark Davis is he's out back. He's out back. His eye is bandaged because when they were in the catering area, there was a spot where he took a drop toe hold and he went face first into a chair that was laying on the ground, but the legs were sticking up. So one of the legs of the chair went into his eye. So I guess since then he had gotten the eye bandage. You can see like there's blood on the bandage. There's blood on his back. Either that or ketchup from the food fight. I don't know what it was. But he's outside. And he sees a golf cart. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're kind of hearkening back to the original Stadium Stampede now. But then we hear the horn honking, and the camera pans over, and it's Jack Perry. And he is driving the Jurassic Express bus. I don't know how fast he was going. He was going pretty fucking fast. And so he comes barreling in, and he smashes right into the golf cart. There was a car behind it, just smashes into them. And I didn't see Mark Davis in there. It was pretty clear Mark Davis had moved out of the way. Tony Schiavone on commentary is like freaking out, like, oh my God, he just killed Mark Davis. Mark Davis is in there. I go, no, he's not. What are you talking about? But he's selling it like he's in there. Perry gets out of the bus and just leaves the crime scene. It's now a crime scene. And so he just leaves the crime scene. And so that's what happened outside. Meanwhile, a few minutes later, they're all out in the ringside area brawling. And I'm like, oh, Mark Davis is back. I'm like, okay, Tony, Mark Davis just no-sold death. There was a lot of no-selling in this match, but that's taking it to a whole new level. He no-sold being mowed down by a bus. So I think he'll be okay. But anyway, this ended really the only way that it could, with Jericho hitting a lion salt. But it wasn't to Ricochet. Even though Ricochet came down where Ricochet was kind of surrounded by all of the baby faces. But Bishop Khan came to his aid. He ended up eating the lion salt, and Jericho got the pin. And when the match was over, Jericho set up... there was one last table outside that had not been broken. So he set the table up. He stood on the ring steps, and he did a splash. He took a bump through the table and then pointed up at the heavens in tribute to Sabu. And on commentary, Taz, he made a comment. He goes, boy, I wish I knew he was going to do that. Because he was starting to get emotional. He had no idea that Jericho was going to pay tribute to Sabu in that way. So that was kind of a nice moment there. I don't know what else to say about this except that this was just mass chaos. Exactly what you would expect out of a match like this. It will be a very polarizing match. There are people that will look at this match and go, this was fucking terrible. This was awful. It was just a bunch of spots and no selling and silliness. And yes, that's exactly what it was. And there are times that they will do these matches and I'm just not into it. And then there are other times where it's the best thing on the entire show. That's kind of how I felt about it last year. I enjoyed this. I had fun with it. Was it perfect? Did I like everything about it? No. Did I like it as much as Anarchy in the Arena last year? I did not. I deny.
Attention.
I thought that was better.
Sicko in row 4. Look, I know you're excited to be a Dynamite tonight. It's your first show, but you can't be pulling that thing out. Okay, you got to put that away.
Fuck Triple H.
And don't think I didn't see that sign that you brought that said, I came to see AEW. That's sick. Thank you.
That is sick. The sickos will never learn. You got to keep that shit. You got to keep that in your pants. Okay. I know you're all very excited about this, and the crowd was very hot for these matches tonight. But you have to control yourself. That was from Well Now. That was a $40 super chat drop from our boy Well Now. Thank you, brother. That was amazing. Again, I'm going to get to your messages here in just a little bit. So yeah, it's going to be just a very polarizing match. If you liked it, great. If you didn't like it, I get it. It was meant to break up, I think, the monotony of all the wrestling matches by just doing something really silly and just wild. And it was a way to get a bunch of people on the show because they didn't really have room for them to be doing anything else. So he wanted Omega and he wanted, Jericho and Andrade and the Bucks and the Hurt Syndicate. It was a way to get them all on the show. What I would have done, I would have shaved off a good 8 to 10 minutes. And I think you could have accomplished the same thing. And you could have cut out some of the fat, trimmed some of the fat in the middle of the match. But otherwise, I had fun with it. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. But then the main event did not go to the ring until 11:35 p.m. Welcome to AEW. So we had the AEW World Heavyweight Championship on the line here in this main event. Darby Allin. This was, what was this? Number 8, I believe. Title defense number 8 in a little over a month since he won the championship. Defending against the former champion MJF. Title versus hair. They had one lone electric razor sitting on a table with a spotlight on it on stage. As MJF came out, he was staring at it. He looked nervous as fuck. It was right there. And when Darby came out too, there it is. That one razor is just sitting there on that table. And they have like one of those big announcer chairs, like the office chairs, sitting up there as well. In the event that when this match is over, they need to sit Darby Allin or sit MJF down to allow Darby Allin to shave his head. The match starts, and it had to be in the first, 60 seconds, 90 seconds maybe of this match. Darby Allin took just a terrible bump. There was a tope at the start of the match where his feet caught the top rope, which stalled his momentum on the way down. He was doing the missile launch that he does through the ropes right out in front of the announcers. His feet caught the top rope. And so what ended up happening is it looked like he came down directly on his head on the floor. It was more the back of his neck, or it kind of folded him up a little bit, like his spine, but it looked horrendous. It was terrible. And this is the beginning of the match. So that should tell you right there. That sets the tone, okay, for what you can expect out of Darby Allin here in this match. So MJF, he goes right to work on him. And he stiffened the shit out of this guy. Powerbomb to the edge of the ring. He took him into the ring. He gave him a powerbomb across the knee. They wound up on the ropes where MJF wanted an avalanche tombstone. Darby, though, countered out into a stun dog. And this crazy son of a bitch, he goes right back to do the same fucking move. And so he hits another suicide dive. This time he knocks MJF over the announce desk. Then he had MJF on the apron. MJF was laying half in, half out, and Darby goes up to the top rope, and so he's going to do a coffin drop. But then that's not enough. He climbs to the tippy top of the post. He's going to do a coffin drop off the top of the post to MJF on the apron. What do you think happened? Of course, MJF slides out of harm's way. Darby Allin dives backwards, and he crashes and burns with the coffin drop on the apron. So MJF then goes outside. He turns the ring steps over onto their side, and he's now standing on top of the ring steps, on the side of the ring steps, with Darby, and he delivers a fucking package pile driver on the steps. which honestly looked worse for MJF because he landed right down on his tailbone. And so I'm sure that probably didn't feel too good. It seemed like it had more consequences for him than it did for Darby because, Darby has nothing in his head anyway. So MJF went for a side headlock. Darby shoved him towards the referee. MJF stopped short. But in that brief moment that Bryce Remsburg was distracted, Darby hit a low blow, and he got a side headlock takeover only for a near fall. Right? That's how he won the title. Then he got MJF trapped in a Scorpion Deathlock. MJF was really milking this potential tap out here. He was like, going like this, like he was gonna lose his hair. He was about to go bald, and he was really milking this. Got the rope break. Darby quickly rushed up to the top for a coffin drop. MJF, though, got the knees up on the way down. Then he got a near fall. So MJF goes for a heat seeker. Darby, though, shoves him off, and he slingshots into the ring, almost into a cutter. But Darby ends up getting him in position for a Scorpion Death Drop instead. He nails it, and now both men are down. So as they're laying there, we got dueling chants of let's go Darby, MJF. Let's go Darby, MJF. Yeah, Winston, that's actually a pretty good way of putting it. Winston says, Darby may not have a long career, but it is a memorable one. That is true. I don't know that Darby is going to be taking these kinds of bumps when he's in his 40s and 50s, but it will certainly be memorable. So they traded about 25 near falls at this point in cradles. Well, I'm not exaggerating. It was somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 rapid fire, like near falls. And even that, like some people really don't like when they do that. Some people love that spot because you see that in matches sometimes. They took it to like the extreme though. They just kept going back and forth. One guy would roll a 1 count, roll him over a 1 count. They were like rolling around the ring with a series of 1 counts and 2 counts. Until Darby hit a code red for a very close near fall. So MJF, he's leaning on the bottom rope now. On one, he's like sitting down, leaning up against the bottom rope on one side. Looks exhausted. Darby is on the opposite side of the ring. He's leaning against the bottom rope, and they're staring at each other, right? They're just looking at one another. And then they're struggling back to their feet. They're like the pained expressions on their faces. So then they resumed combat. MJF, he ended up outside. Darby went for yet another low tope. MJF pulls the cameraman in harm's way. And Darby hits the cameraman. He wipes out the cameraman. Really, they showed a replay of it from behind the cameraman. And really, he wiped out the camera more than he did the man behind the camera. He sold it anyway. And now there's like doctors and officials that are at ringside. They're surrounding the cameraman. And they're like tending to this guy as if, he had taken a bullet, which in a way, I guess he kind of did. But again, it was more the camera that took the brunt of the impact. So they all huddled around him for a while. They helped him to the back. Tony Schiavone says, the first time I could ever remember seeing a cameraman, help to the back. In fairness, I'm sure Tony has never watched the first Hell in a Cell match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, so it's okay. So MJF, he got Darby on his shoulders, and he walked him up to the stage, and he sat him in that office chair that I mentioned. And MJF goes over to the table, and he grabs the shears. Now, Darby doesn't have a whole lot of hair on his head anyway. He's got a fucking mohawk, but he's got the shears. He goes to use the shears on Darby. Darby, though, kicks them away, and he gets a guillotine applied. And MJF is struggling, and eventually he goes out. Right? He's out, but it's not false count anywhere, so Darby can't pin him on the stage. Instead, he picks up MJF, and he lays him out across the table that, again, had the razor on it. And then he glances back up behind him, where the Tron is, the set, the scaffolding, right? The gears are going in this man's head, right? You can only imagine what he must be thinking. And so he begins climbing. And he it was at least 20 feet, maybe more. Could have been 25. But he was up, maybe let's say 20 feet. He was up there a pretty good amount. And he just gives the Cactus Jack, bang, bang, Cactus Jack. And he jumps off with a perfect coffin drop. He nailed it, right? There's not a lot of room for error here. He nailed the perfect coffin drop off the scaffolding down through the table. Could not have landed that any better, other than the fact that when he came up, he was busted open from the back of his head. And his mohawk had gone full red. So I don't know if he hit his head. There's like a little platform there that was kind of elevated, almost like a step, like where the table was. I don't know if he hit his head on that. I don't know. But the back of his head was blood red. And that was honestly the most blood that we had all night. Outside of some incidental blood, I think Cope maybe had some blood by his eye, cuts on people's back maybe. This was the most blood we had on the entire show. And wouldn't you know, at least I found it to be more impactful that way. It's the first thing I noticed. I said, wait a minute. This is the first time all night that we've seen that much blood. And it wasn't even like anything, like he wasn't wearing a crimson mask or anything like that. But it has more of an effect when you use it sparingly, especially if you save it for your main event. I understand you can't always do that. You have other stipulation matches on these shows, but it definitely has more of an impact when you haven't already seen it in fucking 4 or 5 other matches on the show, including the opener. Right? It's going to mean more. So they make their way back to the ring. Darby goes up top. He lands another coffin drop. Into the cover. He gets the 1. He gets the 2. Kick out by MJF. So Darby again with the Scorpion Deathlock applied, and he's kind of reaching back and grabbing the back of his head. He sees the blood, and then he just falls forward and passes out. It's the same spot they did in the match that he had with Sammy Guevara on Collision, where he had him in the Scorpion Deathlock, and he just fell forward because for a moment there, he passed out. So he collapses to the mat. And they got this great camera shot of MJF flashing just this devilish grin, like he realizes he just caught a big break. And he went for a headlock takeover. Darby, though, countered into a Scorpion Death Drop. And then he kipped up. And he makes the climb again, but MJF, he shakes the rope, and Darby ends up getting crotched on the ropes. So MJF goes back to the ropes, and again, he's going to go for an avalanche tombstone. He gets him in position for it, and he nails it. And I'm like, okay, now. You just gave this man who nearly broke his neck earlier in the match, you just gave him an avalanche tombstone. If we're not going home here, then we're doing something wrong. So after that, he does the headlock takeover, and he gets the pin. As he should have. And he wins for the 3rd time in his career, the AEW World Championship. And when the match was over, Darby had to be loaded onto a stretcher outside, and then they strapped him onto the gurney. Once he was nice and secure, MJF climbs out onto the apron, shoos everybody away, right? Kicks him away. And he kind of puts one foot on the gurney and stands towering over Darby, holding up the championship that only minutes earlier still belonged to Darby, but no longer belongs to him. It is once again back around the waist of MJF. So he's posing over him. Now, Kevin Knight comes out, the TNT champion, who had no match on this show. He sprints out to the ring, and MJF, he bails. And where I knew things were about to go south for Darby is when they conveniently positioned the stretcher outside the ring in such a way where Kevin Knight was on the ropes, kind of looking at MJF. And then I see the stretcher was moved into the perfect position for someone to do a dive onto it. And sure enough, Kevin Knight hits a UFO splash, a twisting splash, down onto the gurney and onto Darby Allin. And the fans are, shocked by this. The announcers are in shock. Oh my God, what are you doing? MJF initially was shocked, and then he started smiling and applauding as he's watching all of this. And the announcer, they go off the air with the announcers wondering why. This is where Jim Ross could have been very effective. Like, why, damn it, why? I don't know if he still has the energy in him to kind of give a good, why, damn it, tell me why. But that's a classic JR call. Remember the Invasion pay-per-view in '01 where Austin turned on Team WWF? Why? Tell me why. Actually, go back to the end of WrestleMania X7. Same thing, right? Why? Why did he turn his back on all the fans and side with Vince McMahon? Why? Damn it, why? So that's how the pay-per-view went off the air. The match itself, I thought, between these two was excellent. MJF and Darby Allin, I don't know that they've ever had a bad match. At least, and not in AEW. Not any of the matches I've ever seen the two of them have. I still remember the first match. God, what pay-per-view was that? Was that, had to be Full Gear, right? Full Gear 2021. They opened the show. They had a great match. And they were part of that four-way at Double or Nothing 3 years ago. I'm not going to count the match they had on TV a month ago because it was 2 minutes. These two they have a certain chemistry working together. And part of it also is just the fact that Darby Allin, for whatever you want to say about him, right? He's a stuntman. He takes these just ridiculous bumps and he's always escalating. And fact is, like in this reign that he had over these last 4 weeks or whatever it's been a little bit longer, maybe like 6 weeks. But over this run that he had, he didn't have one bad match. Find me the bad match that Darby Allin had when he was in there with the people that he was in the ring with, right? Whether it was Sammy Guevara, Pac, Brody King, Kevin Knight. He wrestled Kevin Knight. MJF. Didn't matter who it was. Like he went in there and had some really fun, exciting matches. I think when people look back on this reign, and again, I know other people have talked about this. I mean, people sent me clips of like Alvarez or whatever, generational. I'm not going to use any stupid words like that. All I'm going to say is, looking back at it now, this was a fun run. Right? He was defending the title every single week and going out there and having these crazy ass matches that people were into. Was it really such a big deal? And I said this at the time when they did the title change initially. Like, I didn't really think it was some horrible, horrendous, oh my God, what have they done? Like, give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? Like, if MJF held on to the championship, he would not have been defending the title weekly on television like Darby was. And I'm not saying he should, but I'm just saying. It's not like we would have been in this, like, incredibly exciting period. They would have been building to whatever his match was going to be at Double or Nothing. With Darby, he was on television wrestling different people every single week. It was like a side quest. That's how I look at it. I always knew MJF was going to get the belt back on this show, most likely. It was not going to be a long run for Darby. You knew from the moment he won the belt, it was going to be brief. It was going to be very limited. Right? And so, what's the harm in taking a little detour and then putting the belt back on MJF? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And he was going out there on television and having really fun matches. So where this run will rank in the history of the AEW World Championship, I'll leave that up to all of you to decide. All I know is that he went out there and he made the most of the time that he had with that fucking belt. And he killed himself, as he always does. But he was doing it on a weekly basis. And story-wise, right, he ran himself into the ground, right? He abused his body in such a way where he simply just ran out of gas and he couldn't take anymore. MJF didn't cheat to win. Nobody interfered on his behalf. He didn't use the Dynamite Diamond Ring. He didn't do anything overly nefarious. He beat the guy clean. He beat Darby Allin clean. Darby Allin burned himself out. That's the story. He's got nobody to blame but himself. But Darby went out there and had good matches every week. And MJF, look at the matches he's had this year. Look at the match he had with Kenny Omega. Look at the match he had with Hangman. The match tonight with Darby. He goes out there and he has great matches when the spotlight is on him and the lights are bright and he's in the main event and he knows that all eyes are on him and he's the guy. He knows how to go out there and have a fucking match of the year. So you put the two of them together, they just have good chemistry together. So I thought it was an excellent main event. Kevin Knight as a heel, it just feels right. If anybody was going to go heel there between him and Speedball, it had to be Kevin Knight. You can't do it. Speedball is just not going to work. Now, the way that I see this now is, well, first of all, the question is how will Speedball react, right? We'll find that on Wednesday. Probably not very well. And then the way I see this playing out is Darby should be taking a little bit of a break because, my God. So let him get some time off. And then you do Kevin Knight and Speedball first, right? You can do it a Forbidden Door. I mean, whenever you want to do it. But that's got to be the next match we get. You got to be building to Kevin Knight and Speedball. This is the end of Jet Speed. It should be. You build to that match. And then when Darby is ready to come back in time for All In, I think that's the Wembley match. I think you do Darby and Kevin Knight in London. So just as I'm looking at like the lay of the land here, it would seem to me like that would make the most sense. The pieces seem to be falling into place for some of the key matches when it comes to Wembley. You know, the tag team stuff, again, we'll see what teams come in and when they come in, the Machine Guns, the New Day, and where they fit into the picture there. But you can kind of see, like, you could start sketching a card out for London, even though it's a few months away. But up and down the card tonight, man, I mean, this was just a great pay-per-view. There was a lot going on. There were returns. There were turns. There were just great fucking matches on this show. I had fun with it. Very little downtime, with some of the matches in the middle of the card, but it was just a great show. I think it probably was the best Double or Nothing they've ever done, and it will go down as one of the better AEW pay-per-views that they have ever done. I thought they really hit a home run tonight, which they had to. You had a big sellout crowd in New York. You got to go out there and hit a home run, and that's what they did. Plus, I think a lot of those people were already in a good mood anyway because the Knicks are killing it, so... You don't have to be a big basketball fan to feel like the enthusiasm right now in New York. Like they're very happy. Maybe not with the Mets or the Yankees, but like they're very happy about the Knicks. So we're all in a very good mood with everything that's been going on. But anyway, excellent pay-per-view. Thumbs up show. Take a look at your super chats. Yeah, and Darby, that's right, Darby's getting married soon. So maybe that makes sense then. If he is going to be taking some time off, I think he's getting married next month. Yeah, I believe he is getting married next month. I think he's getting married to a girl that he knew from like childhood. I guess they must have, reconnected. I don't know if they were childhood sweethearts, but like I know I remember reading that they were like friends from when they were much younger, and so apparently he's getting married soon. Maddie says, hey Solo, was Leo in character the whole time at HOG? No comment. No comment. You ain't gonna get no HOG Unreal here. We got to keep some stuff behind the curtain. Hey Joseph Stewart. He says happy Sunday. It's not Sunday anymore. It's Monday morning, and all you crazy SOBs are hanging out with me at 2:30 in the morning. I appreciate that. It says, in your opinion, is Tony Soprano the greatest TV character of all time? Probably not. I don't know who the greatest TV character is of all time, but I'm not prepared to say that it's Tony. Tony is one of the great ones, though. Hey, Jeremy, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night, brother. But I'll agree with you though, Joseph, on your second question. Those are two of the greatest characters. Also, he's coming in with a $9.99. It mentions that Sebastian Stan is going to be playing many different roles in the Batman Part 2. He's going to be a busy guy, it sounds like. He says, happy birthday, Priscilla. I thought that said Priscilla Kelly. Priscilla Presley. I almost completely misread that. And Alfred Molina. Have you seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie Gangs of New York? I have. And what is your favorite DiCaprio movie of all time? I don't know. Maybe The Departed. I may have to go with that one. How was Shutter Island? That's what I never saw that one. Is that worth seeing? Do you think Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme is WWE's greatest theme of all time? No. It's one of them, but it's not the greatest. I don't really have on that next question. I don't really have a favorite moment between them. I think individually they play their roles great, but I don't have a specific moment. Have I seen the Masters of the Universe movie action figure TV commercial? It looks awesome. I have not, but I know it's coming out not this week, but next week. And I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to be able to see that movie. I've already got my tickets for the back rooms this week. I have to see Shutter Island. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that well received. Happy anniversary to Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, released in theaters in 1989 on this day. In storyline, was Triple H the one behind Stone Cold getting run over by Rikishi? Yes, that was the big reveal. Rikishi said he did it for The Rock? He was full of shit. He did it for Triple H because he got paid. And happy belated heavenly birthday to Bray Wyatt. Yeah, I wonder how old he would have been. Probably 40-ish, right? Happy early birthday to Roman Reigns and Bo Dallas. Both of their birthdays are tomorrow on the same day. They're making Roman Reigns work on his birthday. Anyway, Joseph, thank you for the support. As always, Mr. E, 1976. Here's to the tip jar. Thanks for everything you do, Solomonster. Stay pressing forward. I will try. I will do so. As long as you keep showing up, I'll be here. Let's refresh this list here and get going here. Ace of Masta, the hardest working podcaster on a late Sunday night. What do you think of a tag team casino gauntlet match at Allin with New Day and the Motor City Machine Guns debuting? I thought Solo said he has to... Where's your mind at? I thought Solo said he has tickets for the back door. That may be where you're hanging out later this week. That's not where I'm going to be. You could take the back door if you want to, brother. I'm going in the front. What about a tag team casino gauntlet match at All In with New Day and Motor City Machine Guns debuting? A tag team casino gauntlet would be interesting. It would be a little bit of a different spin. I think that could work. Well, I mean, I wonder. Well, I don't know. I mean, would it still? I guess it would still be one fall to a finish, right? I mean, the rules, I guess, could still work the exact same way. I still feel like at least one of those teams is going to end up in a tag team championship match, if not both of them. Watching AEW Double or Nothing tonight was fun, batshit crazy, and glorious, says dried chicken without flavor. It was a fun show. Also, ever since Tony Khan reconnected to his spiritual side, the booking of AEW continues to deliver. They want pro wrestling to be loved and not disappointing in the United States. Well, this show was certainly better than any other wrestling show that we've had all year. I mean, this blew all the other ones out of the water. So, as of May of 2026, they've got pay-per-view of the year on lock. Let's see what the rest of the year brings. Everybody else has to step up their game. San Juan Wolf with a 1999. We just got ourselves a contender for pay-per-view of the year. Yes. More San Juan Wolf. Oh, what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you a question. Now I just forgot what it was. But yeah, I wouldn't even say contender. I would say we got ourselves our pay-per-view of the year. But we still have 7 more months to go, so that could change. Moore says, top to bottom, this is the best AEW pay-per-view ever. Wow. He says ever. It's a pretty high bar. Alexander, according to Uncle Dave, the commission said no blood for the event on the Twitter machine. I mean, clearly someone said something, because if this was any other AEW pay-per-view in any other city, it would have been a fucking bloodbath. So yeah, I don't doubt that the commission had something to do with that. Dev to Dust, the New York Mets will win 105 games and win the World Series. Sure. What year will that be? Will I still be among the living when that year finally comes? You let me know. Orioles Peak. A major pay-per-view ended with a talented young black man standing tall. I just know Triple K is seething, wondering if that is even legal to do. Where did all of it? I see a lot of this on like social media. This Triple K nonsense stuff. Where did this start? Dried Chicken says nothing bland, flat or dry. After tonight, Tony Khan was booking AEW Double or Nothing like he was cooking in the kitchen like a chef. Jeremy Rose, MJF AEW title reigns over under 17. He will not have 17. He will not have double digits. I don't think he even gets to double digits. I don't think they're going to bounce the world title around quite that much. Orioles Peak. I love Mina. I hope she gets her moment soon. Depending on when Toni Storm comes back, they could still end up revealing that she was the one behind it. Temjin Zephyr was at the show live. Epic show for sure. Okada Takeshita, certainly match of the year contender. Crowd was electric, especially for that match. That's my match of the night, by the way. That honestly, that's my match of the year so far. That is my match of the year for 2026 as of this moment. Fucking love that match. The Average Grunt, and still the undisputed king of pay-per-views, All Elite Wrestling. That was the greatest Double or Nothing of all time and an all-timer pay-per-view contender. Indeed it was. Mike with a 5. Unpopular opinion, I am kind of bored with Moxley. It really should have ended the Death Riders after Mox lost to Hangman last year, in my opinion. I thought that's where we were headed, and then it just kept going. I can't believe that Death Riders are still a thing, but they've managed to survive. I suppose if the Judgment Day can still live on, then I guess so can the Death Riders. Tuxedo T Servo with $15. No message. Just showing some love. I appreciate that. Stan the Man with a $25 Bree mode unlocked tonight. Stan, you are indeed the man. Thank you. I think that might be the second biggest one tonight. Yee. Still getting through the sound off, but very keen for this review. Solo, you are the GOAT. Yeah, if you missed it, you've got to check out the sound off. Brand new sound off dropped earlier today. Some good stuff in there. It'll be waiting for you on your Monday morning if you missed it today. MGM Ballin with a $9.99. Attended HOG on Friday. Banger, especially Mason versus Silver. Attended Double or Nothing tonight. Banger. Weekends like this remind me why I love this shit. Weekly television sucks the life out of me, but AEW and HOG deliver. Yeah, we have a lot of people that are like local to New York, and not even necessarily just the 5 boroughs. You could be on Long Island. Some people come from Jersey, but they're like regulars at a lot of the local shows, and they always have fun. They always have fun. The weekly television, look, it's hard to compare the weekly television to either going to wrestling live or watching the pay-per-views, because it's just a totally different. They serve 2 totally different purposes. So like the weekly shows are going to be more arduous to sit through because of all the, commercial breaks and, all the shit that they have to promote. And then you're very limited in the time that you have on some of these shows. But to me, it's not an excuse to put together bad television. And unfortunately, we've gotten a lot of bad television this year. Hopefully that'll start to change. Stadium J. Takeshita versus Okada will always be the best match on any card. Saw it live and it did not disappoint. Thank you for all you do, Solo. You're very lucky you got to see it live. I would have loved to have been in that building there when those people were losing their minds. I can only imagine what that must have felt like. It's like I'm jealous of the people who were there when they had the and that was at Arthur Ashe, I believe. The Kenny Omega Bryan Danielson match. Danielson's first match in AEW. The one and only time they wrestled. And they did that 30-minute draw. To be in the building live for like a match like that, that's special. Power spying games with my team Arsenal winning the Premier League for the first time in 22 years. Maybe the Mets will win the World Series very soon. Sure. It's possible, and maybe I'll make babies with Scarlett Johansson. Maybe that'll happen soon too. What do you think the chances are of that happening? Moore says, looking back at it, Darby landed perfectly on MJF, and the commentators commented on how he hit the edges when he didn't. Kind of proves that he bladed. Well, if he did blade, it better not get back to the commission, or they're going to be in some trouble. It's commission in New York. They don't fuck around. Bender McSimpson with a $9.99. Amazing show. Christian Cage has a great Scorpion Deathlock. More Athena, please. You know what I kind of laughed at is at the end of that tag team title match, you could see like Beth was kind of emotional because she could see what that moment meant to Adam. And then you look at Christian, he never breaks character. He just has this miserable fucking look on his face the entire time. Guy never breaks character. Mike says, I'm thinking eventually Andrade is going to side with Takeshita in all of the Callis drama. Well, that would make sense because he's been trending babyface for a while now. That would make sense. Now that MJF has the belt back, my idea is still very possible, which is if they're going to do another Dynamite show at Arena Mexico in the next few months, that's where you do MJF against Andrade for the world title. Save that match for Arena Mexico. KW150. My first wrestling show I've ever been to live after 23 years of watching pro wrestling at age 28. Worth the money. One of the greatest AEW shows ever. Well, you've set the bar awfully high now, so it's going to be tough the next time you go to a show. It's going to be tough to live up to that show tonight. Medium Ugly Lad. Went to the show in person, and the weakest part of the show was paying $27 for chicken tenders and a Coke Zero. Otherwise, had a blast. Cheers, Solo. Well, unfortunately, that is a problem with all concessions these days. It's like I've been going to a lot of movies lately, right? More than I have in years. And I'll be back there again this week. I don't get food anymore at the movies. I go in, they scan my ticket, I go right to the theater. Because I try to time it where I'll see a movie like late afternoon, mid to late afternoon. And so when it lets out, I just go get dinner. So I don't eat anything during the movie, and I save my appetite for dinner because I don't feel like I like the pretzel bites. And you should see how much these pretzel bites go for. It's ridiculous. I don't even need the cheese, just the pretzel bites. Pretzel bites and like a soda. It will cost more than the actual movie ticket will cost. So I'm like, fuck that. I don't buy any snacks. I just go watch my movie and then I go get dinner. Fuck you. Well now, with the $40 super chat, took a plunge on AEW for the first time in a while, and it was a great show in my opinion. Can't wait to see if Stardom sending Saya Kamatani for Forbidden Door rumors are true. Would love to see people's reaction to the Phoenix Queen. Is that a rumor going around? That'd be great. Get her on the show. Solo would bring some candy with him from this. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I've snuck food in there before. Who gives a shit? I put a water bottle down my fucking pants. I don't care. That's what Larry David used to do on Curb Your Enthusiasm. This journey called life with a $4.99. I was there tonight, and oh my god, this was such an awesome show. Top to bottom, we're all going nuts. I lost my voice. This arena was perfect for an AEW show. Yeah, I think they should definitely run there again in the future, for sure. Looked nicer when it was still daylight outside because you could see some of the daylight coming through. You didn't really notice it at night. It looked better, I think, in the daytime. I think it has a retractable roof too, so if the weather was nicer, I do wonder if they would have had that roof open. Mike says, we didn't really need a night heel turn tonight. They should have just saved it for Wednesday, in my opinion. Well, I think they wanted that probably as a hook to get you to tune in for Wednesday. You know, why, damn it, why? Now you got to tune into Dynamite to find out why he did what he did. I get it. I guess that's the idea behind it. Also, was kind of thinking that we would have gotten a Hangman return tonight. Curious on what their plans are with him when he comes back. I'm just saying. One way around it, if he were to show up in the Casino Gauntlet and win the Gauntlet match, he'd have a guaranteed World Championship match banked. Maybe that's one potential workaround to the stipulation. Chicago for MBK says, thank you. I did not watch the pay-per-view, so recapping your insights are great. Always time well spent, even past 1:30 in the morning here. That's right. You're in Chicago. It's 1:30 in the morning by you. Actually, no, now it's almost 2 a.m. where you are, which means it is almost 3 a.m. where I am. And can I sleep in tomorrow? No. Because I have to prepare my notes and everything for the Uncrowned Wrestling show on Tuesday. And I got to work on the YouTube clips, too, from the podcast today, so. Oh, man. Venom Kitetsu, favorite Cornette wrestler nickname? My God, he's got so many of them. God, what is it's hard to narrow it down to just one. It's been so many. What did he used to call oh god, the small guy with Jurassic Express? Rockstar Spud, not Rockstar Spud. What's the fucking guy? I just forgot the guy's name. But he had like a name for him. Oh, Wheeler Useless. That's a pretty good one. Wheeler Useless is actually pretty funny. Marco Stunt. Yes, he would call him Marco Stunted Growth. And I'm not going to lie, that would get a chuckle out of me. I don't know why I called him Rockstar Spud. Jedi Joker. Taking a shot in the dark here. Women's wild card is Britt Baker. It's possible. I just feel like if he wanted to bring her back, she would have been back by now. I'm going to say no. Alex says after the pay-per-view, WWE should be ashamed of their awful PLEs. Just a shame. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really premium about them. Although I will say, the Clash in Italy card is shaping up pretty strong for next weekend, so that could be a sleeper show. Orioles Peak. A black man has not challenged for a world title in WWE since February of 2022. Left Carmelo off WrestleMania. Did blackface in 1999. Booker T segment, etc. No, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying. I mean, this the idea that it's being done now intentionally. People are being left off the show. Like I was watching SmackDown on Friday. In that segment with Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, and they threw Ricky Saints out there. There's no reason like a Carmelo Hayes or a Trick Williams cannot work themselves up into that like top. And Trick is already in a position where the fans are behind him, so it's not unrealistic to expect that even inside of this year, you know, he couldn't end up in like a main event level spot on SmackDown. You look at a guy like Obafemi. I know he's still very new. Like, if we're still talking about some of these guys in, like, 6 months or a year, and they're still not there, then there's something going on. Because there are just certain people, and Oba is one of those people. There's just certain people where you expect them to be at a certain level at a certain point, and that point is in the not too distant future. And if it doesn't work out that way, and there's seemingly no other explanation for it, I would start to be very curious. MGM Ball and the Mets would have to go 83-26 to reach 105 wins on the season. Not even in your dreams. Not even in your dreams. Ain't gonna happen. This team sucks. Season's over. All right, so the likes goal tonight was a very modest 475 likes. And where we are right now at this moment, we are at 782. I would say we passed that goal. So we will be doing Be the Booker here in a little bit. Let me just catch up on these. MGM Ballin, solo with a water bottle in his pants. Employee would be like, is that a water bottle in your pants? Or are you excited for the movie? And my response would be, I'm actually very excited for the movie. And that would be the end of the conversation. And Mike says, imagine a Texas death match between Moxley now and Prime Foley. The blood would flow. You don't have to worry about Prime Foley. I have a feeling we may be getting it in AEW very soon. All right, let's cue it up here at 3 o'clock in the morning on the dot. It's time to be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
Has to be one of the latest Be the Bookers we've ever done. Outside of maybe the WrestleMania streams. Oakham with a 199 says, Thekla against Becky is a dream match of mine. That'd be a very good match. We're never going to see it. But that would be a very good match. Here we go. Bad Street, USA. It's time for the Bad Street. We got to listen to the Bad Street theme. We got Michael P.S. Hayes we got Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Yes, clean sweep. Don't Warhawk Rambo, don't jinx it. See, now that you said clean sweep, you can't jinx it. But we got the fabulous Freebirds here. And they will be stepping into the ring. We don't know what combination it will be, but it will be the fabulous Freebirds taking on Mark and Jay Briscoe. Some old school wrestling going on here. Now, there's some tag team wrestling that Triple H and WWE is allergic to these days. That's some wrestling for you. Tag team wrestling at its finest. Speaking of fine, we got the former AEW Women's World Champion, Kris Statlander, who was unsuccessful tonight in her bid to recapture that championship. Maybe she can recapture it here and be the booker. She will be taking on Ivy Nile. Did you see Ivy Nile on Raw the last time? It was weeks and weeks ago, but the last time she was on Raw, she was 5 times more ripped than she is in this image here. She had to be training for some sort of bodybuilding competition. She was fucking ripped. And probably had the best match that I've seen her in maybe ever on TV. And then she disappeared. And now we have our main event. It says land on Sting against The Undertaker. Well, I don't think we're going to get that, but let's see what we end up with here. Oh, boy. Well, you're not getting Sting and The Undertaker, but you are going to get Ryback. I hope you're hungry. Feed me more. Feed me s'mores. It's Ryback. Ryback in the main event. Ryback has not been in the main event since 2013. Ryback against Switchblade Jay White. What are we thinking about this match? This is the difference between a clean sweep and no sweep. So think long and hard about this. Can Jay White make something of this main event? What do you think? I tell you what, though, I worry for Jay White. Jay White is coming back from an injury. I don't want him to be injured again. I fear for Jay White. This poor guy. He's been gone. How long has he been gone for already? My God. He's been gone for like a year. No clean sweep. I blame Warhawk Rambo. I think he jinxed it. If we got to put the blame on somebody, we got to put the blame on him. I'm sorry, brother. Jay White comes back, his first match back. He gets tossed out of the ring. Just breaks his leg. Out for another 8 months. Poor guy can't catch a break. Anyway, no Jay White tonight. Hopefully we'll see him back in the not too distant future. Michael Jensen, 56 months, says, damn, pay-per-view of the year, no doubt. AEW is on a roll right now. Look, if AEW can put on pay-per-views like this every month, I'll be happy. I just wish they weren't starting at 8 o'clock. If you know you're going to go fucking 5 hours with the pre-show, just start at 7. Start the main card at 7. I don't know why they don't do that. Anyway, the next time I'm going to be with you live is going to be in less than 24 hours because we are going to be talking about Monday Night Raw. It's the final Raw before Clash in Italy. So I will be live for that. Again, episode 964. 964 of the Sound Off went up earlier today. So if you missed it, go check out the latest podcast. Tuesday, you're going to get a brand new Uncrowned Wrestling show, brand new Tuesday Night Titans over on JD's channel. The Dynamite post show coming out of Double or Nothing will be on Wednesday. And then SmackDown is in Barcelona on Friday. And I am certain that I will be going live a little bit earlier than usual because I should be able to watch the show. I think it's 2 o'clock Eastern on Netflix. So we may be going live on YouTube at like 8:30, somewhere around there on Friday night. Definitely not going to go live at 11:30 if I could watch the show earlier in the day. So just be aware. These next 2 weeks of SmackDown are both international shows. They're in Barcelona on Friday, and the following Friday they are in Italy. So just be aware of that. And then next weekend, if you didn't listen to the latest podcast yet, next weekend is kind of fucked up because they're doing Clash in Italy on Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I will probably be dropping the sound off on Saturday, maybe by Saturday night. So the show may be going up a day early. And then I know AAA has that big mask versus mask match on Saturday night, so I may not be able to cover that. But if worst case scenario, I may talk about that on the Uncrowned show next week. We'll see. A lot of wrestling coming up. I appreciate all of you guys sticking with me for it. Be well. Stay safe. Have yourselves a great rest of your morning. And a hopefully relaxing Memorial Day. And I'll see you back here in less than 24 hours for the Monday Night Raw recap. Until then, take care, guys.